good evening. The time being 7 p.m., I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Just want to let you know I'll be missing a couple of council meetings. I don't know which ones yet, but in the next couple of years, one or two. Oh, I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Here.
Councilmember Amaral.
Here.
And Mayor Barrios.
Yes, please note we are all five here this evening. Please stand for the invocation provided by Pastor Henry Raven, Sierra Foothills Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, agency leaders, constituents. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this time that we've set aside to come together to do the business of the city. We give thanks for our leaders here, and God, I ask and pray that you'll continue to protect and provide, that you will continue to give wisdom and bless the gifts and talents that you've given each one who serves Oakdale. And we thank you for that. Pray, God, that as we handle the business this evening, that we'll be cognizant of caring for one another, of loving our neighbor. I pray that you will continue to just bless the work that has been a part of the progress of Oakdale, and as we continue in that way. And Lord, I pray again your hand of blessing over this group, because the business of the city is not an easy business. And sometimes doing our very best, there comes opposition. But I pray that you will again give a sense of presence, a sense of peace, shalom peace in each heart, and that you will grant each one, Lord, to just serve in the very best way possible. So we thank you for what you've done in each one here, and we pray and look forward to what you're going to do. For it's in Christ's name that I ask. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Henry.
Pastor Raven, did you have a birthday recently? Happy birthday.
No.
Really? Okay, all right. Thought it was.
All right, thank you. So we have a few presentations this evening. Does Henny with Pet Perfection happen to be here? Okay, so we will move right into declaring October as Fire Prevention Month. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I want to introduce a couple folks I brought with me. I have Deputy Chief David Bickle, who's going to go find his partner, special guest that he brought with him. So without further ado, I'll bring them to the podium, and we'll have them.
Sparky, come on.
Oh, that's what that was about. Oh my gosh, that's.
And they'll talk a little bit about Fire Prevention Month and the month of October. Come on up here, Sparky. All right, good to have you. He was out back using the fire hydrant.
There you go. I love it.
Good evening,
Good
Honorable
evening.
Mayor, council members, members of the public, city staff. David Bickle, Deputy Chief, Modesto Fire Department. I also represent the city of Oakdale as your fire marshal and helping with community risk reduction. So as you are about to proclaim, October is Fire Prevention Month, but many people don't understand where Fire Prevention Month came from. So Chief Tejan allowed me to give a quick, brief history. I like history a little bit for those that don't know. So Fire Prevention Week. The Fire Prevention Week was started by the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, in 1992 to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Fire Prevention Week teaches children and adults how to stay safe in the event of a fire. And that's why we have Sparky as our mascot to help bring things like a smoke detector. In 1925, President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed the first National Fire Prevention Week to occur October 4th through October 10th, 1925. The Great Chicago Fire burned between October 8th to October 10th, 3 days, with the most damage done on October 9th. The fire caused roughly, in that day, $200 million in damages, killing around 300 people and destroying 17,000 buildings and structures. The fire was said to have started when the cow kicked over a lantern in the O'Leary barn in southwest side of the city. Fortunately, in 1997, the Chicago City Council passed a resolution exonerating Catherine O'Leary as well as her cow. Today, the Chicago Fire Department's training academy is located on the site of the O'Leary property where the fire started. That's the history of NFPA and Fire Prevention Week. So with that, we'd like to hear from your proclamation.
Well, thank you for that. I had never heard that story before, and as a dairy farmer, boy, that really hit home right there. So thank
Very
you.
good.
All right, so thank you guys for being here tonight. And Sparky, you're the one that goes around to all the schools, correct? He does that.
That is correct.
Wonderful. So we are going to declare October as Fire Prevention Month, whereas the city of Oakdale is committed to ensuring the safety of all of those living and visiting Oakdale. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are where people are at the greatest risk from fire. And Oakdale's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention, education. And whereas, according to the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, roughly 3 out of 5 fire-related fatalities happen in homes with no or non-working smoke alarms. And whereas the 2024 NFPA theme is smoke alarms, make them work for you. The city of Oakdale works to educate its citizens about actions they can take to keep themselves and those around them safe from home fires. And whereas smoke alarms, like Sparky has, should be installed in each bedroom, hallway, and on each level of the home. Test alarms regularly and replaced every 10 years. It is further proclaimed and ordered that the City of Oakdale City Council takes great pleasure in congratulating and commending Oakdale's first responders for their service to the Oakdale community. Now, therefore, I, Sherilyn Barrios, proud mayor of the best city in the world, do hereby recognize October as Fire Prevention Month in the city of Oakdale. And I really just want to thank the men and women of the Modesto Fire Department and all of our fire department agencies around. Thank you for putting your lives on the line for us each and every day. And of course, you know I have a very special place in my heart for the firefighting community. So thank you guys very much. And Sparky, we're going to come take a picture with you and present this to you. So thank you. Red and gold here. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
All right, ready, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Sparky.
Thank you. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's hear it one more time for our firemen and women. All right, and item 5.3. Good evening.
I had a Dalmatian growing up, just so everybody knows, so had a moment there. And I think the city manager, after he gets it open, is gonna kick us off with an intro. I will, sorry, I was just making sure.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today, and appreciate Julie Dixon and Elliot Holt with Dixon Resources Unlimited, who have been leading the effort for our downtown parking review and just dealing and helping us deal with the parking challenges that we're experiencing in the downtown and throughout the city. We appreciate their expertise and we appreciate their insights. And so tonight, they're bringing a presentation to us to talk about their findings and some of the next steps. And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Julie Dixon.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us today. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Great. So I think many of you have actually already participated in some of our community meetings, and I see several of our community members who have participated as well. Just as I begin to launch, we've got quite a few details to share with you today. Some of the results from not only the data collection, but also from the public survey that we completed. But I always like to start off when we talk about parking management is to recognize we all drive cars, we're all parking experts. And so the reality about trying to figure out the solution for what's going to work in Oakdale, it's really important that we be collaborative and we look at this holistically, because everybody has priorities of what works for them. And so it's really important that we take this incrementally and as we try to make data-driven decisions, and to also understand not only what the needs for downtown Oakdale are today, but also what we're looking at for the future. And the reality is, and anybody who's heard me talk about parking recognizes, parking is a learned behavior. We park the way we park because that's how we've always parked. And in order to get me to do something different, it's something that we have to try to shift my behavior. So it comes through education, outreach, policy changes, and it's something that you have to do gradually. It's not something that you can just rip the Band-Aid off. And that's one of the realities of the efforts that we're going through as we talk about the Downtown Parking Action Plan and the direction that we're heading in, because we really want to get to the root of what the issues are, so that we can really, again, develop a comprehensive plan for how parking can be managed not only today, but also in the future. Now, a lot of folks might come forward and say, I don't want parking meters, I don't want time limits, and everything that comes along with the conversation about parking. And the reality is there's no decisions on any of that. Ultimately, we have to come forward to you all with those recommendations. Right now, where we are is really in that information gathering stage, and that's what we're really here to share with you a little bit about the project, what we've learned so far, and then to talk about those next steps. And I really appreciate the one thing also to say is not only are we all parking experts, but the reality is parking touches everything. And whatever you want to say about it, parking touches everything. You got to get where you're going, you got to park your car. When you're leaving, you got to leave, you got to unpark that car, and everything that goes on in between that process. And that's really, again, about trying to right-size a solution for what's going to work for your community. So you heard me mention data-driven decisions, and we're going to talk quite a bit about the data collection that's been happening over this summer. And I'm really excited to describe to you the really comprehensive approach that the city staff has taken in support of the data collection efforts. So there really can be no question about what's really happening on your streets. But for the first phase of the project, we not only came out on site, we interviewed stakeholders, both internal and external, to really talk about what's happening today as it relates to parking, what's up with the policies, the signage, you name it, is to really engage not only internal but externally, and to also hear from the community. For those that have attended the meetings, we bring a parking magic wand to all of our meetings, and we ask everybody if you could change, fix, or improve about anything about parking in Oakdale, what would you use it for? And mind you, the examples and the feedback is vast, but that's really important to understand because, again, when we talk about trying to develop a parking management plan that's the right fit for Oakdale, it's important that we hear from the community for what their needs are. And I have to tell you, having worked with communities of all shapes and sizes, you'll hear me describe there's cookie-cutter problems, there's just not cookie-cutter solutions, because the reality for what works in Modesto or what works in Sacramento may not necessarily work here in Oakdale. And that's the reason why taking this in-depth approach towards parking management is really intended to set you on that path and that direction so that you can make those incremental decisions as we get to that place in the process. And then I'll talk about data collection, as I mentioned, and I'll get into more details when we get to that stage of the process. So what we've taken right now is basically identifying and refining the recommendations, whether it be about policies and municipal codes. You'll hear me describe in a few moments the municipal code is dated. It needs to be updated, and what we want to do is tackle it in basically future-proof. I call it that for the municipal code, so that way you all are readied for whatever recommendations staff brings forward. The code is basically adaptable for those recommendations, and ultimately coming forward with what I like to describe is the parking action plan. And when we develop the parking action plan, it's a little bit different than your traditional parking management studies. We always describe the parking management studies with those big, like 4-inch binders that would go and sit up on a shelf, in a city staffer's office. The parking action plan is intended to really be that path that's customized for Oakdale, And what I like to describe when the action plan eventually comes forward to you, ultimately, the recommendation is that council adopt the plan, just like any strategic plan. It's not that you're approving all of the initiatives, it's basically the guideline that you'll follow for parking. You may never get past step one, because step one might work for Oakdale, but when you get to step two, you have those directions basically outlined in that process. So when we talk about the phases of what we've gone through so far, I mentioned the needs assessment, looking at the operational, the technology, how we're operating today, how we're enforcing today, the data collection, which I'm going to go into about your actual occupancy numbers and why that's relevant for turnover and occupancy. But most importantly, and this is really the key to any project like this, is the public input. And so this is where we've definitely worked really closely with city staff and being able to identify the feedback from the community so that we can ultimately have that influence, and here we're to report out on this phase one part of the project. So we came out in June, and we actually had a few days here on site, and as I mentioned, not only did we meet with city staff, we also went out and did interviews door to door with businesses. We tried to cover as much territory as possible. We also have a project email address, oakdale@dixonresourcesunlimited.com, so that we could also receive feedback and comments throughout this process. Elliot, my colleague, even shared, we just got an email today as well. So it's really important that we keep the line of communications open so that folks can tell us or share with us what their experiences have been. And I will tell you, we had the entire spectrum, the entire array, no surprise, because you have such a variation of businesses in the downtown. We also did meetings in person as well as virtually so that we could also keep the community apprised of the updates and also sharing the data as well as the survey results. And we had both residents and business owners participating in your meetings. And the survey was basically released for the month of August. We've collected over 650 responses, and you'll see on this upcoming slide that you could identify yourself in multi-categories, whether as a resident, a business owner, or an employee, or a visitor. And then there was also a comprehensive set of general questions. And we also, during this first phase, leveraged data collection. Now, why is data important? In the parking industry, the parking theory is that when you are at 85% occupancy consistently at a block face, it means that the city needs to make parking management decisions. So one of the things that we did was actually leverage data collection, and I have to highlight this. For nearly 3 months, we basically had city staff that went out with what's called license plate recognition technology, or what I'll call LPR, and we utilized this information to collect data Monday through Friday at intervals of 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. The reason why this is exceptional is because most cities only do a 2-day sampling of data. Usually it's a Thursday and a Saturday, or a Monday and a Wednesday. And the reason why this comprehensive approach is so important is because you get that true depiction, that true understanding of what's really happening at your block face, so that when we start to drill in and start to talk about making parking management recommendations, you can leverage that data. And I have to really commend the police department for the dedication of their staff and staff time to do this, because this is not something that a lot of agencies are able to make that type of commitment. And I also want to reinforce, when we talk about license plate recognition technology, people get concerned about Big Brother. The license plate is a unique identifier on the car. There is no looking up of any plate information on any of the cars. It's strictly an identifier, and in fact, the plate information is actually anonymized as well when we go into the data analysis on the back end. But the one number that I want to make sure that everybody pays particular attention to is 85%, because that's the metric, the standard by which we measure parking occupancy, and again, when you start to make parking management decisions. And we'll get into more depth about that, as well as the actual length of stay for the vehicles. What you see highlighted here on the right side of the screen, depending on which side you're looking at on the map, this is the actual study area. You can actually see we included the periphery locations to the downtown. This was really important as well, because some of the questions and feedback that we've received from the community was the length of the walk, of how far they're willing to walk to be able to get to their business or their workplace, as well as some of the concerns about personal safety and how far they'll walk. So it was important that we also identify not only the periphery, but also the core. And in the downtown core, the inventory of spaces of that 831 included 539 on-street spaces and the 7 parking lots, which you can also see highlighted right there in the middle. So a couple of key takeaways for the information that I've talked about here, as I mentioned, the municipal code needs to be updated. We want to ensure that, again, the code is readied for the future, so whatever parking management decisions you want to make. And oftentimes, when we start to talk about occupancy demand as it grows, that could mean changing the time limits. It doesn't necessarily mean paid parking. I want to reinforce that because that's something that always creates some concern for several community members. But it could be different adaptations of the curbside, different policies for both on-street and off-street, which is why I mention this, is because there's a couple of parking theories that I just hope that you'll remember tonight. One is 85%, and the second is on-street is your premium parking. You want to treat your on-street parking as the premium. You want people to be able to get in and out. Many of the community members have heard me describe those parking spaces as wallets. That parking space is a wallet. You want to turn that space over so another wallet can park there and spend their money in our shops and our restaurants. Off-street parking is intended for the longer-term stay. And so when we start to talk about the municipal code and how we manage parking in the future, I just ask that you remember that, because when we talk about the core, what I call the premium on-street parking, we want to make sure that our customers can easily access those spaces and that those spaces turn over. When we talk about parking technology, again, there's things that can be adapted and adopted over time. I like to reinforce parking technology does cost money. So if we ever do get to a place that we start to talk about parking meters or paid parking, it comes with expense. And I think that that's important to understand. And one of the things that's really stood out with the technology that we're leveraging today is our ability to potentially optimize the enforcement tools that our parking enforcement personnel are utilizing today, that we might be able to optimize utilizing the LPR technology, for example. They could cover more ground and be able to manage the time limits potentially even more efficiently or effectively. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go all the way to the letter Z of the alphabet to solve the problem. We can make incremental steps, which could be, again, strategic investments on how we could be more optimized. So when we talked about the stakeholder community engagement meetings, we had the opportunity, and people were very transparent. I want to reinforce that, and I really appreciate that, because the only way we're going to solve for the challenge is to be sure we understand what's really going on. And we do know that our employees do tend to park in those valuable on-street parking spaces. And so the opportunity for us to really look at the current parking time limits, it doesn't really support the needs of our various businesses. And this is where the challenge of the on-street versus the off-street comes into play. We have several businesses that require a length of stay that's longer than 2 hours. And the example is, if I'm going to the beauty salon and I'm getting my hair straightened, I'm getting color, I'm getting it all, I'm probably going to be in that chair for 3 and 4 hours. And I know it probably doesn't look like it today, but the reality is that's what happens when we go to the salon. So we need to be able to find those solutions and be able to, again, find those locations that people feel comfortable parking in, so that our employees can park in those periphery locations, so that our customers can park in those locations that are accessible to the businesses, while finding that balance for the businesses that need the longer stay. And that's going to be the challenge, is trying to figure out how to do all of this and be able to put all these puzzle pieces on the table and make it fit into a beautiful layout. And that's really where we are with the information gathering. So I want to buzz through this pretty quickly, but I wanted to give you some of the highlights from the digital survey. I mentioned that you could select multiple categories as you navigated the path. The one exception to that was when it came to being a business owner or an employee, you answered one set or the other, because it was really important that we wanted to ensure that we heard those results. Thank you. Perfect. So when we get into the Oakdale residents, we asked a couple of questions about parking. So no matter where you lived in the city, we asked about parking in your neighborhood. And you can see from the results here that typically people were able to park within their neighborhoods, and there wasn't really a favor for any kind of residential parking permit program. I will share that as the downtown potentially grows the need to develop municipal code policy to ready ourselves for the potential need for a residential parking permit program caused by spillover parking is something that we would want to, again, ready you for. We know right now there's not really an impact today, but that is something that, again, as we start to manage parking in the downtown, we use the squeeze the balloon theory. When you squeeze the balloon, it pops up through different parts of your fingers. And as we start to evolve the policies in the downtown, we want to ready the neighborhoods around us so that we don't have an impact on a different part of the community. We don't want to just push a challenge from one part to another. So when we talk to the downtown business owners, 24 of the 31 respondents identified that they typically park in a public parking space when they're at work. 29 of the 31s typically park within 1 block or less, and 21 of the 27 indicated that they park in the 2-hour spaces at least sometimes while they're at work. Now, I called that one out in particular because it's important to recognize that whatever the policies are, the reality is if I'm late to work today or just today doesn't really matter, it's just me, the reality is those issues start to stack up. If we all start to push the problems with time limits on street, that is going to prove to be a challenge, but our ability to identify where everybody should be parking for the long term is again an important part of this project. Our downtown employees indicated that, again, the majority tend to drive alone. They're parking in the public parking spaces, and that 31 of the 40 respondents park within 1 block or less of where they work. I have to tell you that is an anomaly for most communities that I serve, and that 31 of the 38 respondents indicated that they park in a 2-hour space at least sometimes while at work. And again, that's something that does add up, and it's something that when we start to look at the data for parking term, what that looks like will be important. We asked the questions about employee parking permits and understanding, again, if it was easier to find a parking space if you had a dedicated employee parking permit. 29 of the respondents of the 63 indicated that they would consider purchasing a parking permit if that was an option. And then the question that's there at the end, 22 of the 63 respondents indicated that if they owned a business in the downtown, would you consider purchasing the parking permits for your employees? And you can see that roughly about a third said that they would. So as we start to talk about the downtown visitors, you can identify the fact that we actually, of 174 of the 355 respondents basically said they're typically parking downtown for 2 hours or less. But again, 113 of the respondents indicated that they need about 3 hours at least to conduct their business. But the one great thing is the downtown is thriving and it's a popular place to go, and that's the reason why this is a good problem to have. I know it's not an easy one, but when we have parking problems, it means that people want to come to Oakdale. So that's a good challenge when you really think about it in the big picture. Now, as we get into the questions about short-term parking spaces, this is something that you can see that 42% of those that responded identified that they did not support increasing short-term parking spaces in the downtown. Now, this is a surprising response because in most downtowns, you actually have the want or request to increase short-term spaces so that there's more available short-term. I can run in and pick up my dry cleaning or run in and pick up a food order. So that number was a little bit surprising comparatively because that one usually is a little bit more popular. And then the concept of prioritizing on-street parking for shorter-term spaces and allowing off-street to be the longer term was, you see about 48% supported that concept. I do think that part of the challenge that we have today is that because we've been able to, what I'll use the term, gamify the 2-hour time limits, where I could go out and roll my tires or move my car to another parking space. That's part of the challenge. I like to call it parking roulette, and it's very evident from our responses that that's part of the issue. One of the things that we can tackle, not to get too far ahead of myself, but when we get into the municipal code recommendations, many municipalities that have time-limited parking introduce what's called a no reparking ordinance, which basically doesn't allow you to park beyond the posted time limit. But this is why we have to solve for the long-term parking of where our employees should park. So the chicken or the egg, you got to find the long-term parking solution in order to implement the no reparking ordinance. So that's going to be an important next step. And then the 229 of the 324 respondents either disagreed or strongly disagreed with, I am willing to pay for parking if it means I can park for a longer term. So that's an important statistic to recognize. But again, if you're gonna ask me, do I wanna pay for burritos for the rest of their life or do I want them for free? I'm probably gonna say I want them for free. So this is gonna be an important aspect as we start to navigate the future of parking management in the city. So I wanted to just share a little bit about parking occupancy because this was the important numbers that I really wanted to dive into. As I mentioned, we collected data from June 17th through September 6th, and for the different 4-time intervals that I mentioned. And that chart that's there on the bottom left of the screen are the average parking occupancies for the entire study area. Now, it's important to recognize that we are well below the threshold for 85%, and you can see that on the right side, you typically have parking availability within a block face or two. This is going to be important too because in a couple of slides, I'm going to show you peak occupancies so that for those that come downtown and say, I can never find a parking space, that's probably true because we have situations where you'll see we exceed 85% occupancy, but I don't want to give that one away just yet because first I want to talk about length of stay. On the map, you can actually see color-coded by parking lot as well as by block face the average for the length of stay. Now, length of stay is particularly important when we talk about the downtown because when we talk about a 2-hour posted time limit, but because we have the license plate data, we can identify the folks that are gamifying the spaces and that are jumping the spaces and moving from one 2-hour time limit to another. And so when you actually start to see this, you can identify how long the cars are actually parking for. Now, we have another map that I really identifies the periphery, and the one thing I really want to reinforce is you really see that longer length of stay on the periphery, which is, again, ideal to the model. But when you really look at that average length of stay, you can see, based on average, the majority, 45%, that's the highest average of the cars, are staying for under 2 hours. But overall, for all of the data that was collected for that almost 3-month period, you can see that the average length of stay downtown was 2.86 hours. This is going to be really important when we start to talk about long-term recommendations, is knowing what that need and what that demand is. Now, this is an important slide because there's some folks that'll say, I can never find a parking space when I come downtown. Well, it's depending on when you come downtown. So what this map on the right shows is basically the number of times that basically you've hit peak occupancy. And so when you see the red, basically during the data collection that was done between June and September, your block faces that are red hit 85% or greater. So it's very likely that if I came down for lunch on a Thursday and I couldn't find a parking space where I wanted to park, it's very possible that that could have been one of the days that occupancy was over 85%. But when you go back to the average, and I go back those 2 slides, you can see that the availability of parking spaces consistently is below the 85%. In fact, it's below 50% as a whole. So I just like to highlight this, so when we talk about peak occupancy, there are times that your parking is well above your 85%, but not consistently. And this is why ongoing data collection is a critical aspect of making parking management decisions in your downtown, is to determine what is the need, what is the want, what is the demand. But I also want to reinforce, when I see a map like this and you see the red, you can see that within a block, there's always a different color, which means that there's a parking space within roughly a block face of those red areas. That's important to reinforce. Now, it might not be exactly where I want to park, but the reality is you have parking available in those locations. So I've covered the majority of this, but again, I just wanted to really reinforce the fact that we have underutilized locations. Lots 8, 9, and 10 are within walking distance of the downtown, and our next steps really tie into the municipal code updates that I mentioned, including the language and industry best practices, doing some financial modeling so we can really talk about some of those technology solutions that could help optimize the program, as well as doing some forecasting and revenue collections. the option to do more data collection as well, which I have to highlight again is a very cost-efficient way to do data collection, and to basically consolidate all the information and develop the comprehensive parking action plan, and ultimately present that to you all for consideration and adoption. And this is the timeline that we're looking at, again, subject to approval, ultimately coming back to City Council in early February with that parking action plan. And I just wanted to reinforce, this is the project email address, available to answer any questions and to see if you all have any feedback.
All right, thank you for all that. That sure is a lot. Do we have any questions from the public on this right now? No questions? What about city council? Any city council members have a question, comment? Oh, hi, good evening.
I'm Fred Miller. I own the corner building at Yosemite and F Street, which is known as Highway 120 and 108, which is the northeast corner. You might know it as the old Bank of Stockton building. They've done a fine job, and I applaud them for that. I'm adjacent to the parking lot number 6. We built the building, we bought the lot from the city, the corner lot, and when we built the building, Richard Murdoch and I, who is a past city councilman here, the city assured us they would assist us with any parking issues we may have in that lot 6. Unfortunately, when they were doing their study, which is we were completing a major remodel of inside the building, so it was 3/4 vacant with just one tenant upstairs. So the study that they have done on lot 6 doesn't account for the building being occupied contiguous to the parking lot. So, and that's not a complaint, but it's just a fact. My hope is, as they prepare to make their recommendations, they'll take into account the balance of the building will eventually be leased. And it was fully leased 2 weeks ago. I lost 3,200 square foot tenant directly because of parking. They have 8 offices downstairs that they leased at the 1st of February. They complained that we have a lot of people parking. It's been vacant downstairs for a while, unfortunately, but we did a remodel to create more offices. But the bottom line is, the downstairs has been vacant for a while, and more people are parking in lot 6 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then going a block or 2 away. That is impacting our parking for when we have the building full. So I want to take that into account. I have a suggestion I've made to them by email, and I think that can be worked out with the city approval. And I'm only talking about maybe limited parking Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, to keep it open for clients across the street, clients for my occupants in the building, and that sort of thing. So I don't have a recommendation. They may come with that at a later date. Just want to make that comment. It's a real sensitive issue for us. We think we have a Class A office space there. I just lost a tenant directly because they couldn't see adequate parking in that lot when they're full. So I'll leave my comment at that and wait for the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
And for clarity, Mr. Miller, for clarity, your lot is an all-day parking lot as it stands,
There
number
are
6?
some 2-hour parking. When Bank of Stockton was there, I can't remember if there was a complaint with parking or not, but they created some limited 2-hour parking on on the very west end of the parking lot.
But for the most part, it's all day.
Yeah, the east end, which can take parallel parking along the railroad track, the east end, there's a sign there that I think can be removed. It says "to limit truck and trailer," and I think that was put there when the
Oakdale
feed and seed people were there selling hay and feed and things in bulk, so it made sense. We can gain more parking there by removing that sign and creating parallel parking. I think we can get 4 to 6 parking spots there. That would help a great deal, but bit of suggestion I made this morning.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for comment on this item? All right, council, any questions, comments?
I,
So you're good with this?
no, I've got a question, for Julie. On your slide number 16, just need clarification where it says, an even 22 of 63, 35% indicated yes and no to the following question. If you own a business in downtown Oakdale, would you consider purchasing an annual parking permit for your employee?
Half said yes and half said no.
So
I think
22 said yes and 22 said no,
Yes.
is what you're saying? Okay,
Yep,
that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
great, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments? Thank you for that, appreciate it. Okay, item 6, we gave direction to staff. Now it's time for public comment. Anybody wishing to provide public comment, please step up to the mic and please state your name. Good evening.
My name is Carissa Patassi. I am the wife of Jared Patassi, who is running for city council. Being part of my husband's campaign for city council has guided me out of my comfort zones at times, this being one of them. Mostly this involves, though, being more open and educational about our beliefs, filling our social cups on a weekly basis, and having a busier schedule than normal, etc. And I was prepared and aware of these circumstances. However, what I was not prepared for or ever thought would come forth is a current council member, pro tem mayor, to make a mockery out of a traumatic incident our family went through. My husband was pushed to make a statement due to some social media pressure regarding an unfortunate civil matter. And I cannot make the assumption that every council member saw the post, but I do have an inclination that they are all aware of it. I am aware that many of the city council members chose not to politely check in or reach out to understand or sympathize with what our family was going through. Thank you, though, to Fred and Bob for your kind gestures. But I do know for certain that one city council member did see the post, and he chose to try and make a mockery out of it on his social media, with his goal to try and bring negativity and harassment to us. With being greatly disappointed in his actions, we still chose to take the high road and not blast him on social media. My husband shared small amounts of details of the incident to protect and respect the others involved, and he was clear that this incident not only involved himself, but also our children and myself. So not only did Chris Smith try to hurt Jared by this, but he also tried to hurt the whole family. I have children afraid when the doorbell rings or a knock at the door asking if the bad people are back, and other concerns and fears that have followed. Chris Smith, you choosing to bring an incident involving children to a social platform to try and influence potential voting is a low blow. Innocent children exposed to poor decisions made by two strangers of adult status should not be used as a tactic for you to influence voters. Chris, you do not know all of the details of the situation, but you took a shot to try and smear an individual and his family. And you stated we are an embarrassment to Oakdale. However, what's truly embarrassing is a city council member who is supposed to be representing the community chose to make a public display of shaming the Oakdale community. And why? Because we have different political views than you? Because we are not your friend? Chris, do you publicly display all unfortunate civil matters on your social media? Or only believe every civil matter is embarrassing to Oakdale? Or do you only post about the ones that you try to bring a bad light on with involving people that may be different than yourself? Ones where children were affected by it, not just adults. Chris, with honesty, full transparency, and not behind a computer screen or phone, can you please tell me what you were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I made a single statement, and that single statement was online. This is an embarrassment.
You also posted something that was reposted with your statement, hoping that people would also read that.
The thing that is embarrassing.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Christina Leon. Before I get into why I'm speaking tonight, what I feel like I need to tell you just a little bit about myself. I'd like you to know that it makes no difference to me how you identify yourself politically, religiously, sexually, or any other label that we tend to put on ourselves. I believed in DEI before DEI was a thing. That's how I was raised. Okay, I will always have a seat at my table, my proverbial table, for anyone and everybody. And when I say table, I guess I'm really speaking about my heart, okay? And I really only have two requirements for you to sit at my table. And that is to be, one is to be kind to others and to be honest. That's all I want. I mean, if you have a sense of humor, that's a bonus, but I'm not gonna not invite you to my table if you don't have a sense of humor. Councilman Christopher Smith purposely and irresponsibly decimated information without knowing the whole story regarding Councilmember candidate Patassi. As you heard from Mrs. Patassi tonight, their family endured a very traumatic experience. So I have to wonder, what reason other than malicious intent would Mr. Smith, either as a private citizen who has a right to put whatever he wants on his social media post, but also as a representative of our city, feel the need to draw attention to an incident that he did not know the whole story about? It doesn't make any sense. It is my opinion that it was a calculated attack to try to tarnish the name of a city council candidate, and it was, simply put, a cheap shot in very dirty politics. The current city council deserves better than that. The city of Oakdale deserves to be represented by someone better than that. And I have to agree with some things that Councilman Christopher Smith said when he was quoted by ABC News. He said, to be honest, and this was like talking about the mask mandate, to be honest, it's disappointing. It's disappointing that as leaders of the city, we're supposed to set an example for everybody, you said. And then by the Modesto Bee, you said, the council members should lead the community by setting an example for the rest of the city. I couldn't agree with you more. So, I have to ask everyone here tonight, is Councilman Smith a leader? Is he setting an example to the city? My answer is no. For it is for that reason I ask that there be a vote of no confidence to be taken to relieve Councilmember Smith of his duties. I have more, but I'll respect the time unless you're willing to let me finish my statement.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I can't speak.
But how much longer?
Like probably 30 seconds.
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate. I mean,
Yeah,
I will
go
honor your
ahead.
time. I
Go
appreciate
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
If he is not removed from City Council, I ask that he be relieved of his duties as Mayor Pro Tem. It is my understanding that this possession represents you, Mayor, and I've had a few interactions with you. You are positive. You are those things that I want at my table, and I don't feel that he is a good representation of you or our city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else for public comment? Good evening.
Mayor and council members, I am here to, as a representative of the Oakdale Library. Yvonne has been out for a bit, so I'm come to let you know what's going on at the library. My name is Brent Lowe. I'm a library assistant there at the library. Things that are going on at the library. October 8th, tomorrow, we've got our Master Gardeners. If you're interested in learning about composting, come and hang out from 6 to 7 tomorrow night. Wednesday, we have a computer basics class that is at 10:30 in the morning. It's generally for adults, and the space is kind of limited, so give us a call. October 14th, we have a spiderweb craft for kids of all ages. 15th, we have Lego Day from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We have another computer class, this one about the internet, on the 16th at 10:30. Thursday, the 17th, we have a Bubbles and Chalk event from 3 to 4 in our outdoor space. Hopefully the weather will be cooperating for that one. We have a family game night on the 22nd, Tuesday 22nd, from 3 to 4. from 6 to 7. It's a game night. 24th, Thursday, we have a spooktacular bag craft from 3 to 4 for kids. 28th, if you're interested in being a friend of the Oakdale Library or just want to attend the meeting, they have a meeting at 1:30 on Monday the 28th. Every Wednesday for October and November, we have preschool story time at 10:30 in the morning. Every Thursday, we have our Wiggle Worms story time from 10:30 in the morning. What else do I have? Today, we opened our voting drop box. So if you have your ballots and need a place to drop them off during our regular hours, you can drop them off at the library. It's just right inside the front doors in the lobby.
What are your hours? What are the hours?
I knew somebody was going to ask me that. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays were open from 10 to 6. Tuesdays from 12 to 8. Fridays and Sundays were closed, and Saturday from 10 to 5. And they're available. Right now, they're picking them up once a week. As it gets closer to the election, the elections officials will pick them up more often. And all of this, all the stuff we have going on at the library is due to the county's 8-cent sales tax. We're very appreciative of that. And also for the support of our Friends of the Oakdale Library, the Lions Club, and the Rotary, who all help out at the library. And thank you. And then you guys have any questions of me?
Any questions?
If you are wanting to come to the Friends of the Oakdale Library meeting on October the 28th, I can tell you it is the easiest board to get along with, and our meetings only last 1 hour, and we would love to have you come and help us serve our community. Thank you.
It's
Thank
a
you.
great group.
Tell
yes.
Yvonne we say hello.
I will. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
And I don't know what she drops off, but I gave you calendars. Go from there. Awesome.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
guys.
Thank you, Brent.
All right, anyone else for public comment? Okay. Oh. Good evening.
Hello.
How are
Good
you?
evening, Council. Charles Leon. This is a little bit different subject that I wanted to talk about. It has to do with public safety. I've seen over the last couple of years a rise in something that's very concerning, and that would be something I'm sure everybody has seen, but nobody wants to do anything about, and that is the golf carts that are driving all over our town. No place in the city of Oakdale is driving a golf cart on the street legal, or any other type of vehicle that's not registered. The other day, it's been getting increasingly worse, where it used to be just driving down the streets. Now it's driving down the sidewalks, driving across busy intersections. And the other day, I saw a guy on a scooter, who I presume was the father, leading looked like maybe 11 or maybe a 10-year-old driving his very, very small sibling down Gregor Street. So these things, I think, need to stop before we have any more.
Is it mainly on Gregor that you're seeing it, or are you seeing it at night?
Everywhere in the city of Oakdale.
Yeah, we've got a problem over on Pontiac as well.
Okay, so.
And on A
So
Street
you're
as
talking
well.
if they're not legal, so in other words, they have a VIN, a vehicle identification
Has
number,
to have a
registered with
VIN,
the
it has to be
DMV and
registered with the
insured.
Department of Motor Vehicles,
Yeah.
has to be insured.
But
Okay.
I'm
So I think it's a
seeing-
certain speed that they
I'm
have to
seeing
have.
kids driving these things.
Oh, really?
Not necessarily.
There are low-speed vehicles, which are different from golf carts, and
Oh.
low-speed vehicles have different laws concerning where they can be driven. But golf carts can only be driven in a community around a golf course, golf carts can only be driven where there's a golf course, and it has to be an ordinance and posting saying you can do that, and it's usually within a certain distance from a golf course. We don't have a golf course in the city of Oakdale. East Oakdale has a golf course, and in those houses in the county of East Oakdale, they could possibly have something, although I've never seen a sign posted there either, so.
Councilmember Emerald, do you see them in your neighborhood?
Yes, I have. They go up and down Reed Road all the time. Sometimes at dusk or it's dark and
With
it's.
kids.
Yeah, kids.
Kids, adults, everybody. It's just, I had a second thing I wanted to talk about, and there wasn't anybody else that wanted to talk. Maybe I could have a couple extra minutes. It has to do with I haven't been to a meeting for quite a long time, but back in the last meeting I went to, you guys voted, I don't know if it wasn't you guys specifically, all of you anyway, but You voted on getting rid of the contract with Grover or whoever else came and did our landscaping and implemented and hired city workers to come and do that. They haven't been doing a very good job. They're overworked, they're overwhelmed. They don't come out and do the grass on a regular basis. The trees have been severely neglected. They're drooping down, they hit cars as you drive under them. Sprinklers are broken all over the place, and that could be from golf carts running over them. But it's mostly from, I think, the riding lawnmowers that the guys use. So I just wanted to ask, I know there was talks in the past about removing those mow strips. And is there any way or any talk about going forward those and getting rid of those?
Again, this is in the Bridle Ridge area.
Bridle Ridge, yes.
Brian?
Thanks for the questions. Appreciate you bringing up the first issue and as well as the landscaping. We recognize that it is a challenge to maintain all the mow strips. We've also done some research at the cost to remove all the mow strips, and then what do we do then? And it's an astronomical number. So that's why we haven't really moved forward. We're going to continue to try to assess the situation on a piecemeal basis. The reality of why we switched from contract to city is the bids that we received from the contractors had like doubled and tripled. And so the revenue that we receive for the Bridle Ridge subdivision in particular is what it is. And so we have to just work within that budget. The only way we could increase the revenue would be for a vote of the community to say, we want to tax ourselves more. And our guess is that's not going to be the case. And so we haven't pursued that option. So the reality is, with the budget we have, we've hired the staff that the budget can afford, and we're doing the best we can. And our guys do a phenomenal job with the resources they have, and we recognize that. So just to give you a little case in point, when our crews just edge the mow strips, they walk over 10 miles just to edge that. So there's 10 miles of mow strips when you add them all up. Thousands upon thousands of sprinklers, and you're absolutely right. I mean, they get broken, and I think I'm the #1 reporter of water and sprinkler issues as I travel throughout town. So those are things that we're going to strive to get better at. I recognize that there's an issue, and we're just going to keep trying to do better.
Have you downloaded the My California, Oakdale, California app? That's really awesome. You can report them there. Or 840-6111 is our 24-hour hotline. I know we get people that call in all the time and report on the app. That way, if you see something, at least let us know on the city side. I would appreciate that.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah,
'cause
My
there's-
Oakdale CA.
There's two in front of my house that have been busted
Yeah.
for a while.
I fear that one of these kids is gonna get hit some night
They are.
by a car.
I mean,
and
we've had a couple of bad accidents around here just in the last few weeks, and it'd be a shame to see something like
Yes,
that
it would.
happen.
Yeah, it'd be a tragedy.
And we don't want to have that happen. The other thing about, who could I talk to about a flooding issue in front of my house, where our houses are on hills in Bridle Ridge anyway. They decided they wanted to be elevated for whatever reason. So I water my lawn for 5 minutes at a time, and it runs off, and then the city waters their lawn 2 times a night, which I'm not sure why they do that, because it's way too much water. And then all that water goes down right in front of my house. I live on a corner, and it collects and blocks the sidewalk.
I think
So-
just the app or this.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind leaving your
Yeah.
information and location,
Yeah.
we'd happily assess. Some of the situations we've seen as the trees have gotten bigger, they've started to raise, not a lot, but they've changed the grading of the curb that takes the water, and so we may have to make some
Should
modifications.
put a drain in right there and drain it into the gutter. or
Yeah,
something.
and it also is helpful to use the app for those reporting because, I mean, we literally have thousands of timers as well. So is it intentional that it's going off 2 times a night? Maybe, maybe not. But if we are able to hear about those, then we can assess that. I mean, but all great points.
And we do have that 24-hour hotline if you don't want to use the app.
Okay.
840-6111.
No, I'd rather use an app. I don't
Yeah,
like the
okay.
phone. so.
Yeah. Please turn it in.
Right.
Encourage your neighbors too.
You want to say the app name again?
My Oakdale CA.
My Oakdale City. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All
Council.
right, thank you. All right, Ms. Shepherd. Oh,
Nope.
sorry. Hi, Chief.
Hi, good evening. I want to address his concern with the golf carts. He's 100% correct. In fact, after the last city council meeting, when I was on my way home, I saw two 14-year-olds driving a 3-year-old, and I couldn't pass that up. I had to stop them, call the parents, and have them picked up. It is a significant safety issue in our community. We are going to get the word out. I've given a directive at the police department that they need to get out and they need a message that the golf carts, the way they're being driven around town, cannot continue to happen. We're gonna have some fatalities if people continue to put their kids at risk. I saw a mother picking up, I'm gonna assume it's a mother, picking up 2 children from one of our elementary schools while holding an infant in her hands and driving. We have safety seats in cars for a reason. I don't understand why the community or the parents think that this is acceptable. Our directive at the police department is to go out and cite these people for these significant safety issues. Additionally, we're gonna get some messaging out through our community engagement people so that they understand that we're taking this seriously and we're gonna address it as quickly as we possibly can.
Chief, is there a muni code that does allow people to have golf carts if they're regulated a certain way, or is it just no golf carts on the public roads?
So it's actually a California vehicle code. We as a city can accept, can pass an ordinance saying that we are a golf cart friendly community and that we're also a neighborhood electric vehicle friendly community and basically accept those. But that comes with certain restrictions. Golf carts, like he said, have to be registered through DMV. They have to have headlamps, certain safety features, anything that you would need for like a motorcycle.
Insurance.
Probably, yes.
Yes.
The neighborhood so those are limited to a certain speed, and they can only be on streets where the speed limits are 25 or less. So that really limits what they can do in Oakdale. There's also an electric vehicle that's not a Mach-E or a Tesla. That's called a neighborhood electric vehicle. You'll probably know them as GEMS. They have a speed limit. They have a maximum speed of 35, and they can be on streets that have a speed limit of 35 or less. They can cross roadways if the intersection is nearly 90 degrees on roadways where the speed limit is over 35.
So they could cross on A Street at the light, but they can't drive on Yosemite?
No, they can drive on Yosemite on specific areas of Yosemite they can drive because Yosemite has a speed limit of 35 in certain sections. I think from A down to Gregor, the speed limit I believe is 35 max. I think it comes down to 30 around there. I don't know exactly what it is. So the neighborhood of electric vehicles could actually be on there. But one thing I didn't say about the neighborhood electric vehicles is they're equipped with the same safety standards as a passenger vehicle. So they have seat belts. If they had children that were 80 pounds or under 8, they would be required to be in a child seat. The golf carts don't have that elimination, so kids should not be on it. In fact, we have laws in the state of California. If you have children on a bicycle, they have to wear a helmet, and yet we have people driving these golf carts out at stop signs. We know how people complain about people not stopping at stop signs, and their kids don't have helmets. They're not in safety seats. It's a significant safety issue for us. So I hope I explained the neighborhood electric vehicle and the golf carts accordingly, and I assure you we're going to get to the bottom of this problem.
Will you be posting that on social media to get the word out that way as well?
Yes.
Please.
We're also going to be posting it on citations.
Okay. Thank you, Chief,
You're welcome.
for stepping in. All right, Ms. Shepherd, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good.
I'm very short, so
I know
do
the
it this
feeling.
way. Yeah, it's a blessing. My name's Teresa Shepherd, and thank you so much for having me. I'm a founder of Care to You Oral Care Administrative Services, and we are a nonprofit that provides oral care services to people that don't have means or access. And we've had a couple of fundraisers recently, and I appreciate help with that, Fred, and everything that the community does. I did just want to make an announcement, however. October 19th, so it's coming up in less than 2 weeks, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Community United Methodist Church on Poplar. Pastor Jeff has graciously donated his space so we can come in and put up a pop-up dental clinic. So we're doing that day. It's community-wide, first come, first serve. If you show up at 9 o'clock and you're in my line, I have to assume you need help. so that's what we're there for. We do exams, x-rays, enhanced oral cancer screenings, hygiene, and simple, very basic restorative things that the doctors feel safe to do in that pop-up setting. So just wanted to share that. We really want people in our communities to get the treatment that they need. Just looking forward to having everybody out there.
All right. And
So
one more
thank you
time,
so
the name of
much.
your nonprofit?
I'm sorry?
One more time. the
It's
name of your
Care to You, Oral Care Administrative Services.
All right. Thank you very
Got
much.
the flyer right? Yeah.
And again, to reiterate, it's October 19th, 9 a.m., Community Methodist.
Yes, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. First come, first served. It's completely free. We do that as a nonprofit, and we hope to have a good turnout because we all are volunteers there. We have dentists coming and RDAs coming and hygienists, and if they feel like they've wasted their Saturday by not treating patients, then they're not willing to come again, and we can't have it in Oakdale again. So we want to have this at least once a year. If we can, moving forward, we'll see how this one goes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
All right. Anyone else for public comment? Good evening.
Yes, good evening. I haven't come to a meeting in a while, but it's interesting to hear everyone speak. But what I see is a breakdown in society. We've taken God out of society. We've taken self-governing out. When you take self-governing out, we depend on you people, and unfortunately, you are so few in number, and you make bad decisions. So we would like to see more cooperation. In fact, I would like to know when we can use this facility to have a meeting of we the people, and you would be invited, but you'd sit over there, and we'd be there, and then we'd discuss these problems. If it takes more than 3 minutes, it might take 20 minutes, but we would actually come up with solutions that we could present to the people at your offices. For instance, I think you've bought a building, or you're buying a building in town for the city? Is that true, somewhere?
We did. Yeah.
Right. So where are those people gonna park? To me, I would have bought a building outside of the area of impact. And as far as that goes, we need to start teaching in the schools more social security, I get that. No, but social services and social responsibility. For instance, when I go down F Street at noon, I have to control myself because I want to run over those little kids that walk across the street because they have no concept of stopping, looking, and I see a whole bunch of cars, so I'm not going to walk across the street. I'm going to let them go, right? I mentioned that to the superintendent of the schools, and his response was, that's not our responsibility. Let's leave it up to the parents. Well, the parents don't do it, obviously, and if you have back in the day, you have an assembly. To me, a responsible superintendent would say, we have a problem here. This is how you do it. You stop, look, if there's cars, you don't walk across the street, or you don't stream across, you wait until there's a group of kids. Solves a problem. There's all kinds of issues that we, the people, can come up and discuss, but we can't do it in 3 minutes. Let's see. And then, of course, it's always disturbing that this electric car issue, I hadn't really thought about it, but we're talking about golf carts. Well, obviously, golf carts are supposed to be on a golf course. But if you have these electric vehicles that can be used, but if you're not going to allow them to use them, then what do? You take the expenses of a person. Let's say if an older couple, they can't afford a gas, but they use their electric cart. So you're going to deny them of doing that? Makes no sense. I mean, it does make sense, as in dollars and cents if you're going to find them, because back in my day we called them peace officers. They created peace. Today we have policy enforcement officers that unfortunately take money from we the people and make our expenses higher, our taxes go higher. We can't afford to live. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. It's called self-governing, so we can just provide peace and provide services and provide a comfortable place for people to live where they want to come to Oakdale and not stay away from Oakdale. Because I personally will not go to Monterey anymore because they charge you $1 bazillion per hour to park. I just don't go there anymore. And Oakdale, if you're in the long-term planning, time's up.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn around.
Did you want to?
Okay, my name is David Anthony Avila. Just kidding.
Have a good night. Thank you. All right, anyone else for public comment? Public comment is now closed. All right, city council consent agenda. Any council member like to pull or discuss an item?
I would like to discuss 9.7, please. Is this right in front of the bistro, Brian? I
Yeah,
mean,
yes, it is.
I know it's necessary, but how long do you think it's gonna take? Oh, it's already done?
It's already
So
done.
we're just approving to,
So our
Perfect.
crews, when it was open, made the decision, I think it was a prudent decision to make sure that
Hey.
things got fixed, and so.
look at that. Perfect. I was standing in front of it today, watching them finishing and sweeping. I'm like, man, are we gonna rip the street up again? So,
Yeah.
but no, it's good.
So we just wanted to make sure the council was aware, and so that's why it's there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Because I have a question. Go ahead.
I just want to bring up, as I do, an event, October 19th, Paws, Bow Wows and Brews by Paws and Pints on Saturday, October 19th is going to take place on First Avenue between Lottie and Poplar. So there's going to be a little festival there.
So my question to that is, and I'm for this event, I'm not saying anything bad, but we have an agreement within the city when people turn in their applications to have an event. I know when we do events, we have to do it 60, 90 days in advance, or, so what is that timeline? Is it 30 or 60 days in advance?
So right now, it's 30 days.
30 days? And this is on October 19th? Okay. right.
On that topic, were you still reviewing that email that I sent you for, because it's kind of.
Yeah,
pertaining.
so I actually met with Colleen today. We're making some modifications that we'd like to bring back to the council at a later date.
Again, I am for this event. I don't want to be that way. I just want to make sure that,
Circling back on.
This is the event that's gonna be at the Bianchi Center, right?
No, this is going to be at Last Call and Poplar and E
Oh,
Street.
that's right.
Just
Paws and Pines.
over in
Again,
High-
I'm
over in
for the
High-
event. I'm absolutely for the event. I just wanted to know, so
But
the
if I'm reading this
community
right,
can know.
the permit was requested on September 13th, which is a month plus.
So there was a little, the initial application started at community development. There was some confusion as to where they needed to submit the application, and then it was discussed that it needed to start with me. So there was a little bit of a confusion when the application was submitted. So there was a little bit of a delay, but we pushed it through to make it happen.
Excuse me, Mayor, can I just add a little more information? So with the downtown and the kind of renewal of the downtown, we're seeing more and more requests for street closures and special events and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to use this time to let you know that we're working on modifying or coming up with a draft of modified policies to make it very clear of what that situation should be, being that before it was kind of loose, and they would just happen and they were just occasional, but now because it's becoming so frequent, we need to take into account some of the impacts that has on the downtown businesses and what procedures, best management practices need to be implemented so that it can happen in a more uniform and defined way.
And when do you think you will be bringing that to council?
Probably in the next month.
Okay. I just want to make sure and share that so that the people that have those events can be here and give their 2 cents.
Yeah,
Because,
so-
I mean,
yeah.
I know I'm involved in a couple nonprofits that have a lot of events, and I just want to make sure across the board that we're all on the same page.
Right, and we probably would want to have a workshop before we
I would
just
like
bring
that.
it to the council. That way we can present it and get feedback related to that.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding consent agenda? All right, this is an action item.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have first and a second roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Yes.
Councilmember Emerald?
Yes.
And Mayor Barrios?
Yes, this item passes 5-0. Thank you, Colleen. All right, staff reports.
Now time to start the meeting.
Yep. Now time.
All right, Mayor, members of the council, the item before you is to consider a resolution approving a consultant services agreement with Dixon Resources Unlimited in the amount of $33,100 for Phase 2 of the City of Oakdale Parking Study and Action Plan Project for the City of Oakdale from Fund 631 Parking Operations Fund, and authorize the city manager to execute that agreement. I appreciate the folks from Dixon being with us today and for the work they've done and the presentation they provided. Phase 1, we've talked a lot about that, but this is what was expended for Phase 1. We're just about done with that. It was $44,322. Phase 2 includes financial modeling, municipal code updates, and then the actual parking action plan that has the implementation steps that we want to follow. The cost for that, and this is the same as what was proposed back a few months ago, of $30,400. So one of the things that came out in our public meetings was additional data collection. One of the thoughts that came about in those meetings is it's great that we gathered information in June and July, but what's going to happen during the holidays? There's this thought that, hey, it's a lot busier during the holidays, it's the busiest time. So staff is requesting additional funds so that we can do 2 months of data collection at a cost of $2,700 for November and December, so that we can have more data that's indicative of that holiday period. So the proposal today is, and request is, to receive authorization for Phase 2 for $33,100. That includes $2,700 for the data collection effort. Our parking attendants have done a really amazing job. What this means is they will take the handheld device to collect the data, and then Dixon Resources will pull that data out and do the analysis, much like what they've done for that other period, but for that new holiday period. And that way, when we come back, I think we'll have a more accurate picture of what the true peak times are for our parking in the downtown. So city staff recommends that the city council approve a resolution approving a consultant services agreement with Dixon Resources Unlimited for Phase 2 of the City of Oakdale Parking Study and Action Plan Project in the amount of $33,100 from Fund 631 Parking Operations Fund, and authorize the city manager to execute agreement. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think the biggest thing that we have to say here is we've listened to the concerns as a city, as the city council, and thank you to our city manager, Brian Whitemeyer. And we have spent a lot of time and workshops for the downtown parking, because as you know, everybody can say we have a downtown parking issue. Unless you're a business owner, then you'll say, well, people are shopping in our stores, but we still have an issue. So I do appreciate the city council going through this phase and spending a little bit of money to help our local businesses, our small businesses, get through this. So any other comments from our city council?
Yes, I was very enlightened. The parking experts did such a good job, and at that Zoom meeting, the last that you had, I gotta tell you, 85%, 86% of maximum capacity. And I get it, we didn't really go on the weekends to find some of these event parkings and everything else, but generally, Monday through Friday business, it's a lot less stalls taken than we all had thought. I'm one of those business owners that pounds my fist on the desk and points the finger and blames everybody else too, and they're all doing it to me. We all do it to each other. So after the meeting, I walk the streets on a regular basis, I drive down, and I see there are parking spots available. I mean, you do have to walk a block sometimes, but there
I
are.
don't really want to walk a block. I want to park right in front of the store I
There
want
you
to
go.
go to.
You don't.
I want to be
But-
spoiled like that. But you're right. If you walk around a couple blocks, you can find a spot. Mostly.
It does,
One spot.
it has kind of enlightened me to the problem is a lot less than we thought it was.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Anyone else?
Yeah, when we talked about Part 1 and Phase 1 and Phase 2, we knew Phase 2 was coming. In fact, we said that there's no purpose of Phase 1 if we don't have a Phase 2 to implement the data decisions here. And so this is not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's been paying attention to this. Is the price tag on Phase 2 similar to what we thought it would be back when we talked about it?
It's exactly
It's
the same,
okay. I
except,
couldn't find my paperwork.
except we added the additional data collection.
Yep.
That was a separate thing that came about because of the public meetings.
Yep, okay.
All right, any other questions? Any questions from the public? All right. Oh, yes, sir.
Quickly, I just have one comment, and I haven't been involved in this, so I apologize, but again, I'm a design engineer, so I have solutions sometimes. But,
You want to say your name before you,
pardon?
you want to give your name for the record?
David Avila, for the record. A-V-I-L-A. Born in 1947. I've been around. Have opinions, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Is that enough info? Yeah. Anyway, I see people walking around marking tires to determine if people have been there too long. many they are. I saw 3 at one point, and I imagine at one point we're gonna buy, not golf carts, but we're gonna buy carts so they can ride around. Why not have parking outside the areas of a problem and have, instead of paying people to take our money when we park too long, if we get held up, why not just have a cart, because you're already gonna have it, and instead of taking money from we the people, you would provide as a service, and you would have a couple of those things, driving around town, delivering people to where they wanna be, picking them up, taking them back to the parking lot that's 3 or 4 blocks away. You have an opinion.
I do have.
Would you
an
like to
opinion.
offer one?
I do.
Please.
Because someday I want a double-decker red bus and I want to drive people around Oakdale. So I think you and I are on the same page with that. But for right now, I believe that's a huge liability to have people in golf carts or carts driving people around.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you
All
for
right.
that.
Yeah, but let's have gas engines and not electric, okay?
Yes, gas, for
We
sure.
want CO2
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the plants.
I'll take you on the tour too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you.
I'll bring the ice cream.
All right, perfect. We'll
And
stop
the-
at
and the
Roberts
beer.
Ferry.
I don't know what
We'll
flavor
stop
you
at
like.
Roberts Ferry your last call. You got
Okay,
it.
okay.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else for a public comment on that? All right, this is an action item.
I am going to start it off. Nothing negative about it. I think our parking professionals did a great job. However, I don't know if we have the need to spend this amount of money to go forward, so I'm going to go ahead and vote no.
Okay, I'm just gonna say that if we don't authorize phase 2, then all of phase 1 is kind of wasted.
I don't think it's
So
wasted at all.
I'm voting yes.
Did we have a motion?
We,
We didn't have a motion yet.
Yeah,
so
we need to have
motion-
a,
Motion to approve.
so,
So we have a first? Well, I think
Which I just did.
Mayor Pro Tem did.
okay. So Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Did we get a second?
Oh, okay, sorry.
I appreciate how hard we've been working on this, and it would be a waste of the money that we have used before, so I second the motion, yes.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Amaral?
I'm just gonna abstain.
And Mayor Barry?
Yes, this passes 3-1 abstain. Okay, all right, thank you. And thank you for being here this evening with that thorough presentation. All right, 11.2. Is that you, Lieutenant Stever? Good evening. How you doing tonight? Good. Nice to see you here.
Okay, so, good evening, Mayor and council members. Here before you is a very fiscally responsible opportunity for the 2025 OTS grant proposal. And I will be quick because I know there's several after me. California Office of Traffic Safety has tentatively accepted the Oakdale Police Department's grant application for the annual STEP grant for this fiscal year in the amount of $60,000. Oakdale police personnel have participated in these grants for the past 3 years and at least for 12 to 14 years, I believe, in my time. As a reminder, what is spent is reimbursed. The STEP Grant Selective Traffic Enforcement Program is an annual grant available for law enforcement agencies in California. This grant provides supplemental funds that allow officers to focus on specific areas of unsafe driving that can lead to injury and death. Some enforcement areas are DUI checkpoints, DUI saturation patrols, distracted driving enforcement, which focuses on texting, handheld cell phone violations, motorcycle safety enforcement, crosswalk violations, and unsafe speed. The grant also provides funding opportunities that the department can use towards officer training. These trainings are mainly in areas of alcohol and drug detection, such as standard field sobriety test training. Most of our officers are currently trained. I believe we only have one that hasn't been trained at this point. Advanced roadside impairment, driving enforcement, and drug recognition expert training. For the prior fiscal year, 4 of our officers attended FST and A-RIDE, and as I said, I believe we only have one that still needs to attend. The grant enables more officers in the community to proactively target impaired drivers, and we have seen the results. In 2023, there was a 7% reduction in DUI-related collisions compared to 2022, and for our year-to-date this year, we have a 37% reduction. When fulfilling the grant obligations, officers work several nationwide campaigns focusing on keeping everyone safe. A few of the campaigns are National Walk to School Day, National Teen Driver Safety Week, the Super Bowl, National Click It or Ticket, Thanksgiving DUI Enforcement Campaign, and the New Year's Eve Driver Safety Campaign. Staff recommends adopting a resolution accepting the grant funding from the State of California Office of Traffic Safety for the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program in the amount of $60,000. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for Lieutenant Stever?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. So a month ago, I went on a police ride-along on a Friday night, and I have a lot of respect for our police officers because at 2 a.m., they go to all of our bars in the downtown area, and they stand outside, and they go and do their hourly checks. And the way that I saw our police engaging with the citizens who go utilize these bars, I was quite impressed how they handled themselves. So thank you, Oakdale Police Department.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert.
Great presentation.
Yeah.
Yep. And thank you
Nice.
for going out and getting that grant too. That's huge for this community. It's very, very important.
All right.
I'd like to veer off a little bit and just say, I also appreciate the work that you did on the Animal Shelter Subcommittee. I appreciate all the hard work. I do have a curiosity question on this. On one of your slides, you said 37% year-to-date, and that doesn't include the holidays. Are most of the DUIs normally around Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve and Christmas?
Statistically, nationwide, they are.
So
I
it's
haven't ran the numbers.
7% decrease for a full year and 37%, but we're not including holidays. So could that dip down to 7% again because of all of the DUIs?
I'll let the chief answer that.
So that's a 37% year-to-date.
Mm-hmm.
So our statistics ended at the end of September, where we compare January 1st through September 30th from 2023 and 2024. So if statistically we have more DUIs in November and December, then if the trend stays, we would still be 37% decrease, if that makes sense. We're not saying 37% compared to the full year. It's year-to-date. We compare month to month.
Okay.
And then
that's a big deal then.
Continue through. Yes.
That's a huge, huge difference then. Thank you.
All right.
And usually, yeah, the reason the Super Bowl is on there is nationally, that is the #1 DUI collision day in the nation. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions from the public for Lieutenant Stever? You're going to ask him to do that kid to walk to school day, that first one on that last slide, aren't you? I have a funny feeling about that.
Hey, be nice.
I am, but I did see that, and I thought of you. If you want to, the
Okay,
previous
you can start
slide.
my 3 minutes. Now,
Don't we get a dance
no,
too?
I'm curious, does the city have a program that they offer that periodically when someone goes to a bar and has a lot of fun and gets smashed, that, oh, I'm a bartender, sir, you're not able to drive. May I call and have you a free ride home? And then our peace officers can offer a peaceful solution to DUIs and then not create a huge stress on the families, because a DUI, you know what that does. It's extremely expensive. You got to hire an attorney for bazillion years, goes to the court system. Of course, it's business for the court system. And by the way, Modesto or Stanislaus County is building a new court, which is a business. And so you can guarantee that once that business starts operating, they're going to have to generate more revenue, i.e. more DUIs, more parking tickets, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm as you can see, I'm an advocate for self-governing and work with we the people, and let's have peace. Let's not create chaos and friction, no, it's not a fiction, friction between we the people and our theoretical governors. Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield my time to someone.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else from the public? All right, bring it back to council. This is an action item.
Motion to approve 11.2.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Yes.
Councilmember Emerald?
Yes.
And Mayor Barrios?
Please note, this passes 5-0, and I will be recusing myself from 11.3. Don't forget to come get me when it's all over.
Good evening, council members, minus our lovely mayor. Tonight, we are going to discuss the Dorada Park Chamber of Commerce Parking Lot Improvements Project. We'd like you to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Hensley's Paving and General Engineering in the amount of $176,971.88 for the Dorada Park Chamber of Commerce Parking Lot Improvements Project. Also authorizing a 5% construction contingency and a 5% construction engineering contingency for a total project budget of $194,667.88 to be funded by the Facility Maintenance Fund 540. As you all know, the Dorada Park parking lot is a public parking lot that serves the Royce Memorial Swimming Pool and Dorada Park. The public accesses this public parking lot from A Street by driving through the Chamber of Commerce parking lot and from North Yosemite Avenue. The parking lot is significantly degraded and in disrepair and needs to be rehabbed for continued use by the community. The Chamber of Commerce portion of the parking lot is also showing its age and has not been improved since 1987 and is also in need of replacement. This project will include a removal and replacement of existing asphalt, installation of a new catch basin, installation of a 12-foot commercial driveway with bollards so that staff can more easily access the site for maintenance, some curb and gutter repair and replacement, and new concrete wheel stops in the parking lot. Here are some of the current existing conditions. I don't think the pictures really do it justice. Most of us have been out there and seen the condition of the parking lot. It is in very poor condition. Bids were opened on September 5th. We received 11 bids for this project. The lowest bidder was Hensley's Paving and General Engineering in the amount of $176,971.88. The engineer's estimate on this project was $225,000. And below we have our top 5 bids. So you can see Hensley's was the low bidder. Everybody else was pretty in line with each other as far as just within a couple $1,000s of each other aside from number 5. All the other bids beyond Ross Carroll were well beyond the $213,000 number. This project would be funded with a contract to Hensley's Paving for $176,971.88, 5% construction contingency at $8,848, and a 5% construction engineering contingency for $8,848. For a total project budget of $194,667.88. The Chamber of Commerce parking lot represents about 16% of the total parking area and is utilized by the general public on a regular basis to access the public parking lot. So here's the view from the street where most people use to enter the parking lot if they're not on Yosemite, and then from our plans, a plan showing the area that would be constructed in front of the Chamber of Commerce. The rest of the parking lot belongs to the city.
Forensi's does not own any of that parking lot.
Not as far as I know.
So we're only doing this bid for the city-owned portion, right?
Yes.
Well,
No,
So,
so
I have some
if you look at this drawing, it includes a portion of the lot in front of the Chamber of Commerce building.
and also all the way up to the door of Forensi's.
Yes.
So does Forensi's own any of that parking lot? So it's all the city besides the portion in front of the chamber?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
To be clear on that real fast before we move on. We're having this tonight to fund, is any of it private? Are we?
Negative.
Yeah, it's all public, right? Okay, thank you.
Well, just to be clear, I mean, it's a public parking lot, but that small portion is owned by the Chamber of Commerce. So if we look at this green, that's owned by the Chamber of Commerce. And so the reason why we're recommending that that be included in the funding is for a variety of reasons. One, the public accesses this parking lot from A Street and drives through their parking lot. Additionally, they have provided a number of services to the community via business classes and others. We view this as a partnership with them, that it is the most cost-effective way to get that parking lot fixed. And so because of the impacts of the public in general passing through, and then also in light of their contributions to the community with their concerts in the park, with the classes for businesses, and then just the general goodwill that they provide. Also, a future sign that they hope to install. We would like to have the ability to have community announcements related to city events and that sort of thing there. So with all that said, that's why we're recommending that this fund, not just the city portion, but also the Chamber of Commerce area.
And then,
How-
can you go back to that map? Yeah, there we go. Go ahead.
So, what is the estimated time for the LED sign?
That's something for the chamber is fundraising for that. And so
Okay.
it's at some point in the future. I don't have a definitive date.
In reality, the Chamber of Commerce might own this parking lot, but they don't use it all day long. They use 4 slots, actually 2 slots, and the rest of those slots are filled up with city people. And that drive-through area from left to right is used constantly. So they might own it, we use it.
And I don't know if many of you have recently gone in that parking lot, but it is pretty much gravel in the component in front of the pool. The component in front of the chamber isn't as torn up as the rest of the parking lot, but it's pretty damaged.
So Brian covered most of this slide, but I'll go over just the
Oh, I'm
points.
sorry.
That's okay. It's much better than this. The general public uses the Chamber of Commerce parking lot to access the public parking, which is one of the reasons staff is recommending that the Chamber of Commerce parking lot be included in the larger Dorada Park parking lot improvement project. The Chamber of Commerce provides significant benefit to the community by hosting career fairs and educational classes for businesses. There's a list there: financial literacy, the cybersecurity seminar, branding your business, promoting your business. The QuickBooks class I know is very, very popular with business owners, and large career fairs in January and August. The Chamber of Commerce hosts the Concert in the Park series at Dorada Park each summer, and in the future, the Chamber intends to replace its current pole sign with an LED informational sign, and have offered to allow the city to use the sign to share important community information as well. So in closing, the staff recommends that City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Hensley's Paving and General Engineering in the amount of $176,971.88 for Dorada Park Chamber of Commerce Parking Lot Improvements Project, and authorize a 5% construction contingency in the amount of $8,848, as well as authorize a 5% construction engineering contingency in the amount of $8,848 for a total project budget of $194,667.88 to be funded by Facility Maintenance Fund 540.
Brian, can we advertise on their sign right now?
There is no,
Right now, I don't know if they have
letters.
the letters.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure we could ask.
Can we ask?
You can ask them.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
It's a full replacement, right? Not like a facelift thing or anything
It's
like
not a
that?
facelift, no.
it's a grind out.
Full tear out.
And there will be storm enhancements as well. You know, we have
Drainage.
puddling, and it's going to be a very comprehensive project.
If we approve it tonight, when are we breaking the ground to it?
We'll issue the notice to proceed. If we approve tonight, we'll issue it tomorrow, and we're probably underway in the next 30 days.
Okay.
And the swimming pool is closed, so this is a good time to do it.
Yes.
And speaking of swimming pool, I have used that parking lot because of the pool for 20 years. And 20 years ago, which is when it was 17 years old at the time, it already needed fixing. So this is a good project to work on.
Any other questions?
We done? Any other councilmen? Anybody want to make a public comment? Now's the time to step.
This is worth 5 cents, but I've been on that parking lot many times. I would chip seal it, and we do need striping so you know where to park. And I'd take the other $170,000 and I would buy those 2 little carts and develop some parking somewhere, so you actually increase, so you actually increase parking, which then would have a benefit to the city. But repaving this, the old test is it nice or necessary? It's nice, but it ain't necessary. Pave it, stripe it, spend the money somewhere else to have increased parking, and then everybody will be happy. And then we can have 2 carts. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Any other public comments? Bring it back to the council. Any other comments?
I motion to approve 11.3.
I'll second.
Colleen, first and second.
Councilmember Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Emerald,
Yes.
and Mayor Barrios. Or, sorry, and Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
That's yes, that's a 4-0.
Yeah. Thank you.
And somebody's getting the mayor. Karina, just while you're here, I walk by and drive by Fish Park quite often. Your little playground is packed and popular. I want to say thank you. You did a lot of research on that, and it's just fantastic.
More to come. More to come.
What's that?
More to come.
Back to you, Chef.
Oh, sorry. I was listening to something else for a second. All right, so item 11.4.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, city staff, and citizens. Please bear with me as I read. It's a rather long subject for this council item. This item before you is to consider a resolution that would authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Civica Law Group, APC, to provide as-needed legal advice, representation, and assistance to the city regarding extreme code enforcement cases and other matters assigned to the law group, and also authorize the establishment of a compliance mitigation fund that will assist the city in cleaning up nuisance and safety hazard properties and enable the city to be reimbursed for costs associated with abating those properties. By way of background, the city of Oakdale has recognized the need for a specific organization that specializes in and has a proven track record of resolving complex, ongoing, non-compliant nuisance properties that in many cases pose a safety hazard to the community. These typically fall under the code enforcement umbrella, where the city often has limitations to what may be enforced upon property owners, both private and public, in order to get their properties into compliance. Civica Law Group is a firm that specializes in several services that performs this function. One of the most common services that they provide is the most interest to us, which is representing the city in cases involving health and safety receiverships. Under state law, the city may seek court appointment of a receiver over a nuisance property that has been out of compliance, and they have also ignored administrative citations for a long time. The receiver is a neutral party who works under the orders and supervision of a judge. The receiver assumes the role of a property manager and also ensures that all deficiencies get corrected. Neither the receiver nor the city ever take title to the property. The community benefits from this approach because the property is cleaned up and the hazard is removed by the receiver without the city having to incur the costs or liability of the cleanup. While generally the city of Oakdale is a well-kept community, we do have a few code enforcement cases with non-compliant property owners who fail to take the necessary steps to clean up their property and bring it into compliance within our municipal code. Despite our administrative procedures such as cease and desist letters, compliance orders, and administrative citations, which are all part of our code enforcement process, a small number of property owners still fail to comply. Typically, code enforcement procedures are successful in cleaning up the properties and bringing them into compliance. But in some cases, the property owner absolutely refuses to take action, and the neighborhood and the community is the one that suffers for it. Even though fines and liens are placed on the property, it's still a blight and a hazard for the residents nearby. Entering into an agreement with Civica will enable the community to more efficiently clean up troubled and blighted properties while also receiving cost reimbursement for those efforts where authorized by law and sought by the city. One of the biggest benefits in utilizing a specialized entities such as Civica to assist the city with higher level code enforcement actions, such as a receivership, is increased compliance. In cases that might otherwise be resistant to the city's traditional code enforcement efforts, the potential for reimbursement of city costs once the property is brought into compliance is a benefit. In such cases, if the city prevails, the law allows the city the costs that are expended by the city or the property to be recouped from the nuisance property itself. A receivership almost always only occurs only after the city has tried various other efforts to gain compliance, often for months or even years, and the owner refuses to comply. Civica specializes in receiverships. The word civica is Latin, meaning civic-oriented. Their team of professionals are made up of attorneys and paralegals who have spent their careers supporting code enforcement and improving communities. Civica was founded by Matthew Silver, who has extensive experience in improving communities. He's also one of the only certified code enforcement officers that works as an attorney. At this time, I would like to introduce Sean Morrissey, who is one of the Civica attorneys and is here with us tonight. Sean will be providing a little bit more background information and briefly sharing a few success stories of commercial and residential properties in multiple cities that they have been involved with. Sean, would you please come forward?
Thank you, Patrick.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem,
Good
City
evening.
Council members.
Sean, bring that microphone up. There you go.
Thank you for having us this evening. If Patrick wouldn't mind just showing you a few examples that we have. This is a commercial building that is in Northern California that suffered from a catastrophic structure fire in 2016. This building was in the heart of their historic downtown area and sat dilapidated for several years. Civica stepped in and assisted the city in a receivership that facilitated the voluntary sale of this property and a complete transformation of the building. So you can see the before and the after photos. This is a property that was in a county in Southern California. We had success on rehabilitating the single-family residence that had long-standing violations and complaints. Neighbors and residents complained heavily about this particular property, which over time accumulated an excessive outdoor storage of junk, trash, and debris. The county made repeated code enforcement efforts to gain compliance, but none of those efforts were successful. We assisted the county with the court process to have a receiver come in and get this property up to code. Although it doesn't look as spick and span as some of the other ones, that's code compliant, and that's what we are looking to do. We just want compliance. The last one is a residence in Northern California in a Bay Area city. It was blighted with extreme disrepair and had a primary focus of code enforcement efforts for years due to the unsafe and unsanitary and uninhabitable living conditions. There were insects and vermin infestation, unsafe electrical hazards. After countless legal notices and code violations from the city retained our firm. We assisted them in having a court appoint a receiver. What was once a vacant calamity in the neighborhood was transformed into a beautiful two-bedroom home on 6,200 square feet. This has directly improved the quality of life in the city and for the surrounding community and the neighbors. And these are just a few examples of where Civica Law Group has been able to step in and help the cities in taking immediate and necessary action to get the properties into compliance, and in most cases to assist the cities to recoup in their costs. Have any questions? I'm sure we'd be happy to answer them for you.
First and foremost, I'd like to give a big shout out to our city ordinance gal, Mrs. Garcia, that's here in the public seats over there, at the amazing job that you do within our city, and Love Oakdale and Lisa Kelgard and her team and different church volunteers around our community that go and help some of these just terrible places, I guess you could call them. And I sure wouldn't want this in my neighborhood or our neighborhood around our kids and our families. So thank you for the presentation. Anybody else have questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Yeah, I came in tonight, as you guys know, with the attitude that there was no way in hell I was gonna vote for this. But after having explained to me in much more detail in back and what the exact protocol would be before you take property, my concerns have been alleviated, so. But anyway, thank you for doing that, everybody.
Thank you.
I have a question. The compliance mitigation fund that we're gonna start, we're gonna start it off at $100,000. That'll be our retainer. We've got some pretty clear references on how much it's gonna cost us to retain the services. If the $100,000 starts to alleviate down to 15 or 20, and we have not yet asset forfeiture, how do we replace those funds?
Well, at the end of the day, it would be a council decision. Our hope is that we would not bite off more than we can chew. So we have a couple of properties that need some of the specialized services that Civica provides. And our hope would be to start with those, go through the process, and get it to the end. I mean, we utilize this number because we think that should be sufficient to get us through a few of these. And we'll just have to monitor the budget. I mean, it's something that we've have done, I think a really good job over the years of monitoring our budget, living within our means. We've set this aside so that it's a separate fund that we can track more closely. And so when we do get hopefully reimbursed, that'll go right back into the fund.
Are we getting ahead of the presentation here?
I did have a few more slides, but.
Oh, sorry.
Unless,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry, Patrick.
No problem.
This
Once
100
again, I'm just jumping ahead.
This 100,000 is coming out of the general fund, though, correct?
We haven't even talked about it yet.
But it is, yes.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had to show this slide right here. I spent a lot of time on this slide. You like all those pictures,
That's
those
my
great
favorite
pictures?
one.
That's Farmers Market 2024 right there, our outstanding law enforcement team. This is to show that we're fortunate to live in one of the safest and for the most part well-kept up and maintained communities, and I'm sure that most would agree. And a sense of pride is generally felt by all the citizens who live here. This is in large part thanks to our citizens and the efforts of our employees in maintaining the city, like our Code Enforcement Officer Diana Garcia, who you mentioned, who does an amazing job at juggling multiple cases and working with property owners for voluntary compliance, which is what we always strive for, voluntary compliance. And we'll work with people sometimes as long as it takes if they're at least making an effort and we see that they're making an effort, because at the end of the day, it's just getting it into compliance. With that being said, we do have multiple properties, both commercial and residential, that remain out of compliance, and I'm sure some of you driving by different corners of Oakdale have probably seen some of these properties. Some of them pose extreme health and safety hazards where the property owners simply have no desire or means to comply, despite repeated notices and the best efforts of city staff. This is one example, and for privacy purposes, we won't list the address here, but this is one commercial building that you've probably seen on your drives around town, where it's extremely dilapidated. This is an aerial photo of the caving-in roof. We've been working with them for probably close to a year now to try to get them into compliance. So there are actually two action items that are part of this staff report. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Civica. That's the first one. And the second one, which we kind of touched on, is to establish a compliance mitigation fund. And one of the advantages of having this compliance mitigation fund, it's not just having an extra fund of money, it's also having a separate line of accounting where we can track expenses, and we can, as we recoup costs, as mentioned through processes like the receivership, when the city recoups costs back, those go into the compliance mitigation fund, and city staff is able to much more clearly articulate and track all of those expenses and accountings. So we believe that having a compliance mitigation fund would be in the best interest. There is staff is recommending placing an initial $100,000 into the compliance mitigation fund. Just one item that I wanted to highlight that I believe we gave some updated agreements to the city council. These were after the agenda was already posted. When we posted this item, this is the agreement for Civica Law Firm. Additionally, initially under the insurance coverage, they had the top portion there that has the $1 million per year in the aggregate. However, when we sent this over to our risk management authority, they recommended to us that based on industry standards that we have some increased language in there as well. And so we reached out to Civica and asked them if they would update their agreement to add that additional insurance coverage, and they were more than happy to do that for us. So we just wanted to point that out. This is a change from the initial agreement. This was the only change, and it's a benefit to us because we have increased protection for the insurance. So we just wanted to highlight that. That was the final slide. The city staff highly recommends approving these items. We do believe that this will be a huge benefit to the city and to its citizens. And if there's any additional questions, I or Sean Morrissey with Civica would be more than happy to answer those.
There's usually a slide that says where the money's coming from and where it's going to, but I think that was covered. It's coming out of the general fund.
Yeah, it's gonna come out of the general fund, so what's that gonna take the reserve down to?
We will be presenting the final budget at the next meeting, and it is our anticipation that this, because of where revenues and expenditures of last year ended, that we won't be lowering the reserve below the threshold that we've had.
Okay.
Is this contract that we're getting into binding us to only dealing with Civica with this real estate forfeiture? I ask that because some of these criminal court cases, if you've got drugs on a certain scale that are a certain category, the judge himself at the court hearing will deem asset forfeiture, and usually, government county will take care of that.
So the city reserves the right to.
Yeah, so if the judge ordered something like that, we would honor what the judge says. This is as needed services, so it's not a guaranteed number of hours. It's as these cases come up, they will handle the work that needs to be done.
And also, we only do civil lawsuits. We don't do criminal prosecution through the district attorney's office or through the city prosecutor. That would be a separate agreement or arrangement.
Thank you.
Patrick, your presentation used a phrase, I'm not throwing you under the bus here, you used a phrase that said if the property owner fails to comply. I think if they refuse to comply, because we're not looking at the 91-year-old man who can't mow his lawn anymore.
Correct.
That's not what this is about
Correct.
at all. We just want to make that very clear. This is not, we're going after people who just can't take care of their own places. Diana and all of the organizations that the mayor listed, we take care of ourselves. These are for people who refuse to comply or repeatedly scoff, point their finger at the city and say, tough.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And thank you for pointing that out. And I know I'm kind of putting her on the spot here, but you would be hard-pressed to find a code enforcement officer who does more to work with property owners to establish voluntary compliance. Through her network of working with agencies like the Center for Human Services, Love Oakdale, she works with them a ton. They've done so much cleanup and gotten voluntary efforts, churches to come together for some of those cases where we have elderly people and people that just don't have the financial means sometimes to take care of their property. And, communication goes a long ways. And for services like these, we're talking about properties where we've issued a compliance order, they didn't listen. We've issued a administrative citation, they haven't listened. We've liened their properties. They're just still, there's no communication, there's no desire at all to comply. And, there's really only so much we can do as a city staff. Even if you lien their property and tell them their administrative citations are $20,000, if they don't plan on going anywhere, what does it mean to them? So these are some of the extreme cases where there's non-compliance and also where the properties really do pose a health and safety hazard to the community.
And by getting into this agreement with Civica, it takes the headache that we currently deal with and gives it to them.
When it gets to that point, correct?
So I can be sure that you won't use this company if somebody puts up a tough shed with more than 120 square feet of roof space?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir. We have plenty of those that we're working with right now that we haven't even mentioned to them.
Facetious here.
So
You gotta Chuck
So-
Schuster
so-
back
So-
here.
In reality, we could put the fund into this bucket, we could put the money into this fund and never have to use it. But the plan is, we can use it when we need it. We're gonna refill it back with the dividends that we get back from Civica's efforts.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the council?
I
Anyone,
motion to approve item, sorry.
anyone from the public? Sorry, Councilmember Gilbert.
Well, my concern is, and he shows some great pictures, and I agree that obviously situations like that need to be addressed for we the people. But I have seen the city of Oakdale do something that is absolutely despicable. We had a family that put a block wall around their property in the center of the block, harming no one, totally lawful, and they required them, code enforcement required them to tear it down to the cost of $20,000 or $30,000 with absolutely no advantage to we the people. So my question to you, gentlemen, what is the degree of your integrity that if the city asks you to do something that's totally unconscionable, what will you do ethically? So you're saying that you will infringe on the public's right to own land, and as you probably know, what is it?
So
Excuse
just a
me,
point
sir.
of, point of
Excuse me,
order.
sir.
I mean, this
Please-
is public
please-
comment.
Yeah, this is public comment, so you're talking with us for public comment.
I believe I probably have the right to address whomever I wish at this meeting in my 3 minutes. So I'm simply talking to this gentleman, and, pardon me, who are you? And do you have an oath of office, sir? You do? Well, then how do you have 2 oaths? Are you a bar member? Huh? Are you a bar member? Okay, so you have an oath to the bar, which is to the... That's right. So which do you commit yourself to ethically? Each and every one of those? Well, that's a conflict of interest. So anyway, okay, back to the subject matter. So I'm simply want to know that, and this obviously this company is going to violate we the people's rights, land rights, and I just don't think that's ethical. In fact, I know, and it's not lawful for certain. So if you're looking for a lawsuit, you do have insurance, I see. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, you're not going to use this company over a illegal fence.
No, I mean, I think we've demonstrated over the years that we have worked really, really hard for voluntary compliance. What we're talking about are situations where we have criminal elements, we have illegal behavior, we have blight, we have health and safety issues that regardless of all these efforts and desire to work with them, they just refuse.
Dirty, filthy properties.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
A fence does not constitute that.
Yeah.
No. Good evening.
Hello, Charles Newton. Thank you, Council. I just had a couple questions about using this firm. So I'm not generally in favor of taking people's property, but I do understand where there are situations where when they end up looking like that it is a public safety concern, not only for disease, but for just hazard. Kids get in there, start playing around, and then they hurt themselves. But, so the only way for you guys, you as a city, us as a city, to get that property is to have a judge give it to us as a receivership, is that correct? Is that what I understand?
But I don't believe we get the property.
No.
Right.
Okay.
We don't take the property.
The title is never transferred.
Okay.
It's in the packet. The title is never transferred to the city nor to Civica.
Well, the reason I'm just bringing it up is if somebody needs to go to a judge and argue legalese to a judge, don't we have a city attorney for that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to speak for our city attorney, but I think there's specialists. Like, I go to my general practitioner doctor, not for surgery, right? I mean, these are very specialized cases.
Well, it's a civil matter between the person and the city, and generally the city attorney takes care of civil matters in the city.
You're absolutely right. In
Tom,
this case,
Tom.
Tom, your microphone.
That question
In
was
this
thrown
case,
to
they
me today,
perform a
earlier
specialty
today,
much
talking to
cheaper
people.
than we can do it.
Right.
And they have a higher likelihood of bringing money
Right, and so one of the things that I'm assuming would be the concern, hey, we're already paying for a city attorney, why are we paying for this other law firm? Our city attorney and this law firm are paid for every hour that they work. So if our city attorney's not working on this, he's not getting paid for this. So it's just utilizing, I mean, it's kind of using the best tool for the job, right? It doesn't mean you don't need the tool. I mean, Mr. Helen and I've had the privilege of working with him for quite a long time, and he is an excellent city attorney. He serves us extremely well. And so just like the general practitioner that I go to for my medical needs, he's not able to satisfy every medical needs. It's not because he's not good, it's just not, he hasn't focused his time, effort, and energy on that speciality. So that's what this is.
Thank you for bringing the question up, though, because I had a
no, it's a
number of
great
people
question.
earlier today ask me the same thing.
And I had the same question when this was proposed, and then I spoke to Patrick and Civica, and I was confident that they can do it cheaper and better and have a higher likelihood of bringing money into that kitty than we could.
So this city attorney, I'm just not knowledge of this, but the city attorney isn't retained and just makes an annual salary. You get paid for the amount of hours you work.
Right, yeah, so we just.
Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else for public comment on that item? All right, this is, hi, good evening, Charles. Mr. Chetron. Hi, good.
Question here. You know, we're talking about the city attorney and these gentlemen, and yet at the same time, we're talking about $100,000 in a slush fund. So we have $100,000 that we're gonna take and put away for these gentlemen to do whatever they're gonna do. All right? If they do nothing, then it just sits there. All right? As opposed to our city attorney, if he's not working on it, he's not being paid, and there's no $100,000 being out there in your budget. It's just a thought that popped into my head as we were discussing this. So
Sure, the 100,000 exists. It's there. So we're just simply saying, you know what, we're gonna move it from here and put it here. So if our city attorney doesn't work on those elements, if the Civica attorney doesn't work on the elements, the funds are available and can be utilized for other purposes later on if the council so chooses. We're just setting this into a fund so that we can account for that and more easily track the expenses, so that when we do recoup, it doesn't get commingled with other funds, so that we can then magnify that original $100,000 investment to not just help that one or two, but 3, 4, 5, or hopefully none. Hopefully we just continue to get voluntary compliance and that money sits there, but it is at least available for us to utilize.
But once you move it, it's not considered part of the general fund anymore, correct?
Yeah, so, but the council could say, you know what, we haven't used it in a year or two, let's move it back to the general fund.
But, well, again here, it's a budget requirement now. You're making a budget requirement of $100,000, all right? And that $100,000 could go to something else, which I'll address later, but, you know, am I making any sense?
No, I think you're making complete
You wanna know that it won't be
sense.
used for anything else?
What?
You wanna know that it won't be used for anything else?
No, it's the fact that you are required to have that $100,000. All right? So if your budget is running really tight, that means something has to go up to pay for that $100,000.
So that was on my question, what I was asking him about.
Yeah.
Hey, what if we got really down low and we didn't get a return? And that would be coming back to council to say, do we want to continue to pursue this? At that point, we would have the decision to either say yay or nay.
It hasn't
All
paid
right,
us back.
well,
Right. And we can
Thanks.
look at this fund at any time and say, look, we've made all this money back. It went down to 60, now it's back up to 99.
Oh, so-
We can actually look at this separate column. If it's in the general fund, it's lost in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on the money part too? So you got the $100,000, and now we need to utilize it. So we go down $60,000. You do the work that you have to do, and you retain additional money of, let's say, $80,000. You You see where I'm going with this? Like, what happens with the extra 20? Do we just like put it in that
Well, I don't
account for
think we
later on?
would recoup more than what we spent.
Okay, so it's only, okay,
I mean, this is not a moneymaker.
right.
This is not a moneymaker. We're not doing this so that we can make more money. It's basically, we hope to never have more than 100,000. It's just recycled into that fund.
There's no punitive measure to the homeowner. It's just whatever the city's costs were that are recoverable gets recovered. There's not a 2X factor to that. You won't profit off of this at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you pay somebody to come in and clean up the property, you're only gonna charge that person what the city's not gonna tack an additional fee onto that.
No.
Okay. All right, that's what I-
In those cases, they will pay for the costs associated with the legal actions as well, though, which is something that we don't have available to us right now. So if the attorney spends 3 hours of their time and it comes out to $500 to put those notices together, that property owner would be responsible for
So
paying that amount as well.
It would be the cost of cleanup plus legal fees.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Patrick, on that note, cost of cleanup, legal fees, everything else. Let's say the homeowner says, forget it, I'm not dealing with this.
That's the whole point of
So
this.
now we get into the legal matter and it's sold. The additional money that is left over from all of this, from that sale of the house or whatever, goes to the owner, correct?
Yes, anything remaining would go to once the initial costs that are incurred are paid off, and to make the city whole, then any and all remaining costs that were available would go back to the property owner.
Okay.
The house does not, or the property does not have to be sold. That's only if the property owner can't afford to pay back the city's costs. That's when the house would go up for sale, and then the owner would keep the delta of all the city's costs and whatever other first mortgage they might have had, any other lien they might have had on the property. They would keep the rest. But they are well within their rights to obtain whatever financing necessary to cover those costs and maintain the property. They could use the property to borrow for those funds if there's equity in it.
Yeah, I would think most of the time they are not going to have the,
You'd be surprised.
really?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, this is an action item.
Motion to approve item 11-4.
Second.
We have first and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Amaral?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
And Mayor Barrios?
Yes, this item passes 5-0. Thank you, Colleen. All right, 11.5, City Manager Chad. Good evening.
Probably won't be as controversial on the generator.
Hey, don't talk too soon. Don't talk too soon. Councilmember Smith.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I bring you 11.5. And I just want to go on record that I'm not responsible for anything that I say past my bedtime.
I got about
And that was at 9
18 more
o'clock.
minutes.
So
17.
I'm kind of sleepwalking right now. Let's talk power today. I just wanted to make one quick statement. When they talked about Fire Safety Week or month in October, I found an interesting article. The clock tower was originally the First National Bank, built in 1906 for less than $13,000. So if you look at that and you figure $200 million in 1871, kind of gives you a perspective of what type of damage you're talking about. I just thought that was pretty interesting. So, I'd like the council to consider a resolution authorizing the purchase of a portable generator for critical facilities during emergency power outages and blackouts in the amount of $177,321.44 from the Sewer Capital Replacement Fund 621 and Water Capital Replacement Fund 644. Power outages happen, either they're planned or they're not planned. When we're all safe and in our home and nice and warm at night or in our bed sleeping, this is a lot of times what your city crews are doing. They're out in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the muck. I want to take just a minute to recognize every person. We have a thing called storm protocol. When Jeff Gravel or anyone calls storm protocol, we write it on our whiteboard, and guys volunteer to come out whatever hour you call them. And that might sound, well, yeah, they're getting paid. When they're on that list, they're not
going out with friends, they're not drinking, they're not living their lives the way they want. They're literally on hold, waiting to be able to help in time of a storm. So the purpose of needing a backup generator is to power our pump sites, including our Public Works Office, SCADA, during power outages. Operationally, during a storm outage, staff prioritizes each site based on the urgency of the power needs. We rotate the generator to different locations throughout the event of a power outage. So we have really great electricians. And we'll give you a quick thing. I know we're short on time tonight, but we had a transfer switch at well 5, and a very well company named Generac provided the switch. It took no less than probably 5 or 6 trips from Generac out to our site to try to figure out why their switch wouldn't work. Clint Hillis, our electrician, actually found out and figured out that the manufacturer built it wrong, and there was pegs on the inside of it that were not in the right spot. So we have outstanding electricians. I tasked Dave with getting us a standby emergency generator to be ready for when we have power outages. We have 11 storm sites, 12 sanitary sewer lift stations, and 8 well sites. Of the well sites, 2 of them do not have generators. Now, that's in the future planning to try to get a generator at the site. Some, they don't have room for a generator. It's really restrictive. So we need a generator we can pull up when we need to and plug it in and get that well working. We're in the business of keeping water where it's supposed to be. Sewer stays in sewer pipes, goes to the plant. Flood water goes into the storm drains and gets off the streets. Well, when power goes out, we're vulnerable. If our sewer lift stations back up, they're gonna end up on the road. If our storm stations don't perform, we're gonna have flooding and damage to property. So I told Dave, I want an emergency generator, a prime generator, that we can pull to any site, plug it in and go. I did not know what I asked when I asked that. It's a very daunting task. He did it. He got a generator from Holt of California. We rented it. We've rented it for almost a year now. And he gave the option to purchase the generator later and put 80% of 6 months rental towards that purchase price, which comes out to about $16,300. So I want to buy this generator, and you're going to look at the price. It is a Sourcewell price. Before I say that, we have 2 old generators. The one on the left, the white one, was at well 7 when I started here. I think it's probably got, I'm not sure what's in it. It's old. It tiered out a long time ago. The one on the right tiered out. It was on a trailer. But when it tiered out, we were able to put it at Sierra ND as the backup source power for Sierra ND. That lift station's crucial and critical. If that thing if power goes out there, we have minutes to respond and put a plan in place. So the CAT generator that you see up there, it's a hefty price. I struggled. I looked at it and I said, okay, let me try to get 3 bids. And I found out that generators are very, very subject to what you put in that box. So I can look online and I can find a generator and it can say the first number is the same, but nothing inside the same. The difference with that generator right there is we can pull up to any storm station or anything, and it can plug directly in, and it's either 3-phase or single-phase power. I'm not an electrician, and you might not know what that means, but the next price on a generator at $155,000 can't do that. You have to take it apart inside to switch it from 3-phase to single-phase power. I don't want our guys touching electrical like that. Our electricians are qualified, our staff's not. So when our guys pull this out to a site, all we have to do is switch a switch between 3-phase and 1-phase, safe as can be. And so I really want to save that $16,000 of the rent, and so I'm asking that you guys will consider, or recommend that you adopt a resolution at the City Council for the purchase of a portable generator for critical facilities during emergency power outages and blackouts in the amount of $177,321 from the Sewer Capital Replacement Fund 621 and Water Capital Replacement Fund 644.
That's a good presentation, but we're gonna have to talk about this. I'm getting tired of seeing money come out of our water fund. I realize the importance of a generator. But so far this year, we've created new job positions with water money. We bought the PG&E building with water money. I've heard Brian say it's inevitable we're going to have to raise water rates here again sometime in the future. You know,
How
I'm
much is
getting
in that
tired of
account?
seeing our water fund money being used on other projects. And I know the importance of a generator. That's my issue with this thing.
I've got just numbers, because numbers always bounce around in my head. Your presentation said the rental fee was $4,400 per month for 4 months, but we're gonna cash in 80% of the 6-month rental. So how long have we rented this thing?
We've rented it for almost a year, but the way the rental agreement is, you only get 6 months, 80% of 6 months rental if you decide to purchase it.
So what was the rental fee? Okay, because my packet says the rental fee was $4,400 a month for 4 months. What was it for the other 8 months?
You know, if that says 4 months, that's a typo on my part. It was 6. And the reason, I'm not sure if you guys noticed this, I had this on the agenda earlier in the year, and that's when it was 4 months.
Okay.
And so I must not have changed that one.
That makes
that deal.
sense.
But it is 6 months.
So it's basically, we've been paying $4,400 a month for about 12 months?
Right. And then when this, just so you know, we've used that generator 3 times. We used it once in an unplanned power outage, and it worked like a dream, just like we'd want it to. We used it a second time for
This
a
one.
planned power outage,
This one that you want?
this one that you're looking at right there. And we rented that brand new, no hours on it.
I had questions based on 4 months, but
I'm sorry.
this answers this.
Okay. So, and then we actually used that again today at the
Haven't we
sports park.
purchased a couple other generators? I mean, we purchased at least, what, 2 or 3 already this year? 2 other ones?
The generators that we purchased were for well sites or specific locations.
Right.
And those are on a foundation. You
They're on a
can't use those
foundation.
but at that site. And they're vital.
I
It's
thought we had
critical.
purchased a portable. We haven't, huh? Yet
No.
this year?
No, no.
I thought we had.
Do we know what's in that sewer account? Like, how much is in there? What is the $177,000 going to affect that account?
That was Fund 621.
644, 621.
644. Well,
That's
621,
water.
yeah.
621 is,
So I'll tell you, let's see.
okay, so we've rented for a year at $4,400. That's nice of them to give us 6 months.
So we're anticipating at the end of this fiscal year that we'll have $6.8 million in that account. And so.
This is the water fund?
This is the sewer fund.
Sewer fund? Just sewer fund or both?
That's the sewer fund. And then, I mean, so these are huge numbers, but I think it's important for us to know that what this service is, it's a huge cost.
Right.
So in our water fund
Okay,
capital, we have
That's the one I'm worried about.
7.5 million. And so, but we will spend that really quickly. We need 2 new wells, at least $2 million apiece. I mean, we have, sewer pump stations that need to be rehabbed and that sort of thing. So this is a lot of money that we have for big projects. This is a lot of money in of itself.
So you
but
will-
in the big scope of the budget, it's not a huge
It
purchase.
sounds like you will need this money for water projects, though. And we shouldn't be spending it on generators.
So we absolutely should spend this on the water fund because there are wells that don't
Okay.
have a generator
Okay,
that we need.
That's my point, though. We're spending it on generators instead of new wells or,
No, it's not, it's not an if or this or that, it's both, right? We need the generator and we need new wells, right? I mean.
to keep the wells running in a backup
Right,
situation.
and then just to accommodate for the fact that we have a well that was built in the 20s or 30s that is really weak and failing, and so we need to replace it.
I would like to invite every single one of the city council members to go on a ride along with Jeff during one of the major storms. I went with him last year, and it was very eye-opening to see what our employees have to do in the pouring rain and the spots that they have to go and take care of. And this generator is very important because we could have a very messy problem if
I
this does
fully
not-
understand the importance of a generator, I really do, but it's where the money's coming from.
So where should it
That
come
bottom.
from?
I don't know, but it's coming out of the water fund, and I
And the
fear
reason
here
why
in
it comes
the
out of the
future,
water
we're gonna
fund
be
is because
raising
it's
water
for the
rates.
water system.
Yeah,
So we should use water fund money for the water system.
but we've used the water fund money on the PG&E building. You created that new job earlier this year, capital
Yeah,
project
and it's
monitor.
all to the benefit of the water system or to the sewer system.
That job was not specifically related to water, though.
That's why it's not
covers a lot of
specific,
things.
it's not 100% charged to that, right? And so this is, you know, so I do a lot of work on a variety of things. So what I am paid goes to the general fund, goes to the sewer fund, goes to the water fund, because I work in all those areas. I'm not necessarily the one turning the valves, but the work that I do has a big effect of what happens. Just administrative work that's being done today benefits the water and the sewer fund. Bringing this report costs money because it takes time to bring it to the people, to the council to hear. So we can't run a sewer and a water system and think that it will always just go to the pipe or to the piece of equipment. We actually have to have the people, right? I mean, you know, Jeff just talked about our engineers. They are paid for from the water and sewer fund, partially, right? Because they work on the water and sewer system. And so that's simple. I mean, it's just a simple fact. They charge to the source.
What's the city on average a month bring in for that sewer fund?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, annually, the operating budget for the sewer is, yeah, I mean, it's a revenue of about 7.1 million a year in
It's
the
divided by 12,
sewer fund.
600 grand a month, something
And
like that.
then the water operations fund is about $6 million. So, I mean, what we're running is a complicated municipal system, right? I mean, this is much more than just your normal house boats. This is a massive system. We have 72 miles of roadways. We have 72 miles of pipes all throughout the city. I mean, and we have a fabulous team that says, this is what we need to keep this going strong. That's what we're here to do.
I wanna bring up the difference between rent and buying. Because we rented this thing so far for $55,000, simple math is telling me. So at this rate, 2 more years of this rent, and we're out all of this $170,000 money anyway.
Well, 3 more years,
So at
really.
this point, 3 years, 2 more years, because we've already dropped.
Because they're gonna give us credit.
You know, I
Yeah,
do want to,
16,000.
I'm sorry.
So we're getting 16,000 back, which is better than a kick in the shin. But at this point, 4 months didn't make sense. 12 months makes a lot of sense, because if we've used this $4,400, if we've written a check outbound for $4,400 a month, every month for 12 months, we're already at 55,000. That's just rough, simple math. And if we're gonna continue to need to rent this thing, I agree. Where's this money coming? Where's this money going? But we need this generator.
Yeah, and so you guys understand one thing. I didn't just come to you guys today. You can ask Mr. Gravel. I had a little bit of an issue because I want to make sure when I bring to you guys that I don't look at $40,000 as not a lot of money. Where do we come when that's not a lot of money? That's a lot of money. I'm not up here saying it's not a lot of money. What I'm up here telling you is we have to have a generator this winter. If we don't,
Like I
that
said,
money's
I-
going to
I
look really
fully-
small compared to what's going to happen.
I
But
fully
just to put your-
understand that.
Well,
I
to put your
just-
mind at ease, though, there's generators right there on that picture that the city has purchased. We still have them. They didn't go anywhere. They just tiered out. This is Tier 4 final, John Deere size, is Caterpillar motor.
Can you explain what that is?
Tier 4 final? Yeah, so the emissions, the one on the left, we weren't allowed to use anymore because it didn't meet California emissions. The one on the right fell into the same category. It tiered out, but there's some loophole. We're allowed to put it on a pedestal, and I guess it doesn't pollute the air when it's not on tires. I don't understand the rules. I just have to play by
Thank
them.
goodness for that, huh?
Yeah, I don't understand the rules. I just have to play by them. All I know is that
This new
I
one-
put a lot of hours into trying to research a generator, and all I know is I know nothing about generators.
And this new one passes all of the California restrictions that we need to pass.
It's Tier 4 final. It will not ever be told, will never be told to park.
Jeff,
It's
is
final.
there a warranty on this?
Yes, it has a standard 1-year warranty on the generator and 1 year on the trailer.
So we've been using it for a year though, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't start until we
Okay,
purchase.
so it starts
We
with the
take
purchase.
ownership.
Correct. The Holt of California has been phenomenal. He suspended the rent when we were gonna take it to council at the 4 months. He again suspended the rent right now, so if I call him tomorrow morning and say, the council said no, I owe some rent. So he's trying really hard to help us purchase it. We already have it, so there's no time waiting for it to be delivered. Again, we used it today, so.
Here's the thing, Brian, I just feel that our water fund has kind of been turned into a slush fund where it's being used for everything, you know?
It's only being used for water and sewer, right? I mean, if it's for the water
Well,
fund, it's only
If
for.
you're buying generators and PG&E buildings.
Yeah, so
But
I
these
don't
generators
think
are running
we're
water
communicating
wells.
very well, because
No,
this
but
will
you
be.
have used
So
at
this,
least
will
partial
this,
water money.
generator be used on our water system?
It's on our water and our sewer, and our storm, which.
So I guess I'm just kind of confused.
Well, no, okay, this thing, okay, it is associated with water, but we've already spent it on other things. It just seems like there's been a whole line of things here that we've spent water money on, and some of them weren't associated.
Right, no, but we're talking about a generator today, right?
Okay, well.
I mean, that's what I
still
have
think-
in front of me.
We've spent water money on numerous things, and we just keep adding to what we're using
So-
water money for.
so
And
I think it-
I worry about the citizens of this town having their water bills raised here in the near future, too.
Right, and so I worry about that too, and I will do everything in my power not to raise the rates.
Because our water bills have gotten pretty excessive.
So our water bills haven't been raised? How long? Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, we've been maintaining the system, and I think this is really important for us to prepare for the future. No one wants the rates to go up. But I can't even get a sandwich at any of our local eateries for less than $15, right? I mean.
HBRB, dude.
Yeah, well, I need to go there. Well, I need to go there, but I mean, I just go to, just some of the franchise. If you get a foot-long sandwich, you're well over $12. That, I mean, how long ago? It wasn't that long, $5 foot long. I use that because inflation is real. And we are not immune to the effects of inflation. And so we can't help but pass that on to the ratepayers, because what is actually most important is that we provide water that is safe and abundant, so that we have water when we need it and that it's safe to drink. And so I can't control the world economy or even the United States economy. Alls I can do is try to respond in an appropriate way, and I commend our staff for doing that time and time again.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Roberts? Any questions from the public? Yes. Yes.
Some of your time. This issue brought me here tonight, by the way. The $177,000 that we're talking about, and I can see where this particular item is related to the two funds that Mr. Mamarell is talking about. But I'll tell you what, with that 177, just to put the numbers there, if we add it to the other things that are questionable that these funds have been used for, I'm talking about the sewer and water fund, we've got a $900,000 expenditure that you've made this year, all right? We bought a truck that has a lift on it to change lights, okay? He mentioned the PG&E building, all right? And let me see what else we had.
Capital project manager.
Capital project manager, which is an ongoing expense of $112,000. Okay, and then we had a leaf loader for $170,000. Now, the leaf loader, of course, takes the leaves off the streets. That's fine. What are the leaves on the streets? What do they affect? They affect the storm drain. What's that got to do with potable water and sewage?
So some of our storm drains actually enter into the sewer system.
Where do they order in?
I can't tell you specifically, but when we have a storm event, the flows at the wastewater treatment plant go through the roof. I mean, can you speak to that a little bit? Here, why don't you come up?
We get probably an extra 1 million to 2 million gallons per storm event when they're bad. If we get like 2 years ago, it was, I think, like 3 million extra in one day. It was a lot of water going through.
So I know there's some concern, and it's okay to have concern, but I would hope that when we show evidence, that the evidence is accepted, right? The water system needs power, right? The water system needs administration. The sewer system needs administration. So those are fundamental things. So at some point in the future, when the city gets bigger, we're going to come to you and say, you know what, we need more water operators. We're going to need more sewer operators, and it's an ongoing cost. And so what we do in a very prudent way is build our budgets so that we can provide the service at the lowest possible cost. That's what we will continue to do. And I think, there's not many cities out there that have held their wastewater rates steady for over 5 years. Right? And then our water system, we don't have anything coming for this last year, but we're going to have to build the budget, right? In the coming year, we're going to have to present a capital improvement plan, and we're going to have to bring in and have a rate analysis so that we can say that, hey, do we have enough funds? Do the rates cover the cost for the wells, for the pumps, and for all the needed infrastructure that is now degraded and that needs to be replaced? And so that'll go through a public review and all that stuff, much as all these other expenses have done. So there may be disagreement, but we've gone through an open public process for all the expenses that have been a concern of yours.
Yeah, well, again, I still don't figure the light truck, that one goes beyond me. But that's my concern, because I don't want the rate to go up. I pay $144 a month.
For water, sewer, and garbage.
For my water, sewer.
And
okay?
garbage.
And garbage, okay? But the fact is, that there's only two of us. Hell, I'm 86, my wife's 87. How much water do we use? But yet, the thing keeps on going up on us. Now that I appreciate is when the meters were improved, they give an improved reading, right? So that I understand, but I just don't want it to go any further if we can possibly, stop it.
Those are my
Thank you.
feelings.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I guess the warning is, it is an impossibility for us to keep the rates for water and sewer as it is, in perpetuity, right? I mean, just like I would prefer that gas be $2.25 a gallon.
Me too.
Right? I mean, and so it's not. So because of inflationary reasons, it is an impossibility.
I'm sure
that
you're
we
going to
will-
say no. Can you anticipate when you might raise rates again?
It'll be through a rate study process where the public will be involved to see the information, and they will have a opportunity to
Because I
vote.
was
on it.
here, how long ago was that? I was here the night sitting out there that you guys raised water rates 36%, I believe.
So,
Wasn't there? I might be a little off, huh?
so in some cases, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was something paced. That was the total amount over a 5 or 6 year period.
The room was full that night. Most people were against
Right.
it.
And so what is also interesting when we do that rate study is we will compare ourselves with what the rates are for other communities. And so that is kind of a good litmus test to see where we are compared to others.
Yeah. What'd you say, 2021?
Yeah, I'm pretty
I think
sure.
it was further back than that.
Oh.
It was quite a bit.
I think
I mean,
that 5
because
years, I think
it was,
that
it
5
was over
years.
5 years ago because it was a 5-year rate, so each year it was raised a certain level, and last year was the last rate. So that was
Yeah, 'cause I remember
2023,
who was
so
on the
5
city
years before
council.
that.
Pat Paul was still mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. Christina Leon again. I just have a clarification question. We rented a generator 3 times in the last year. I don't know who to look at to ask
We,
that question.
meaning the city?
Yes.
We had a continuous.
Is that what I heard?
It was a continuous time.
Okay.
So we rented it to have it on hand
Okay.
in case of those
Uh,
emergencies.
3 times, or did I hear
No,
that correctly?
One time.
Okay.
One time for a year.
And
period.
so that's something that we have to do repeatedly, I would assume, because we don't have a generator of our own.
We rent because we don't have, yes.
And so I think that's the point you were trying to make, Mr. Smith, that, I mean, in the long run, will it not be cheaper for us to just buy our own and not just continually throwing money to rent?
That's what I was.
Is
Right.
that, I mean,
It's
am I
just if they're
understanding
lasting
that
for like 20
correctly?
years.
Yeah,
I
this
don't know that.
this is probably a 20 to 25-year purchase. Both of those generators on the screen have been repurposed. The one on the right was a mobile generator. We found a loophole with the Air Quality Control District to take it off its trailer and make it a permanent location. And we did that in conjunction with an upgrade to that sewer lift station, and that's a major component to the sewer system in the city. The one on the left is it's actually a truck engine that was rebuilt to act as a generator. There's a generator component and a truck engine. It was used as a stationary location at a well site. One of the purchases that we made for that same well site that I'm talking about, which is Fish Park, Well 7, the new generator replaced this mobile generator. This mobile generator was moved out to our treatment plant to use as needed.
And the point of this is these have been in service for decades.
Yes.
And so the one we're going to purchase will be in service for decades.
Yes.
So when you amortize it over those years, the cost of that generator is actually pretty small.
Right. And to keep renting it, that doesn't.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I understood that did not make sense.
I also want to throw another little tidbit in
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
That Jeff didn't bring up, but not because you missed. This Holt is based in Sacramento. However, the sales tax for this, because of whatever reason, is Oakdale sales tax. So we're gonna get the $1,000 back into the city from the
I just
sales
wanted to
tax.
throw one more thing out there for you guys to consider before you vote. I'm trying to save the money in those accounts because if we spill
Brian,
sewer onto the ground and it runs into the river, that generator is gonna look cheap. I'm not saying that as like a threat tactic. It's for real. We turn our water taps on and we don't know what it takes to get it there. I know, I'm still the chief operator right now today. And I'm telling you right now, it takes a lot to get the water to your house. People don't understand what we're doing. You don't see water workers doing much. Where are they? What's going on? You might see them when they're fixing the road. So we need to keep our water pristine. We need to keep our sewer water in the pipes. We need to not let that stuff breach. If we have flooded roads and sewer backs up, I don't even need to go into that. That's horrible. So just keep that in mind. We're trying to protect our money by doing, it's expensive. I'm not saying it's
All I
not,
can
but
say is I hope
it's
it's
the
a
most
while before
necessary
we,
thing
The
that we need
first
to do.
fine level, if I remember right, the first fine level for a sewer breach is $100,000 from the state.
Depending on where it lands, you're right.
Then there's all the cleanup and everything after.
If you want to go see the sewer lift stations and have Jeff lift them up so you can see the sewage with your own eyes, I encourage you to go with him.
I haven't taken a tour out to the sewer farm
You
yet.
need to.
I'd like to go out there.
It's something. It's a
It
good.
is something. All right.
I motion to approve item 11-5.
I'm seconding that motion.
Oh, sorry.
Come on up.
Come up, Dave.
You can come up, but I did give the public an opportunity, but come on up.
Okay, this is actually a 4-hour discussion. I have 3 minutes, but the challenge here is that agriculture is being hammered with wells, and you're talking about drilling more wells. So I'd like to sit down and have a discussion with you on how you can justify drilling wells. We're going to put 600,000 acres out of production, starve people, cause bigger costs of food, and then running people out of the state. That's the discussion I'd like to have with you, sir. And as well, I agree, we need the generator. It only makes absolute sense. That's financially responsible. But and Mr. Whitemeyer hit it right on the head when he said that a $5 Subway is now $15 or $12 or whatever it is. But is that my fault? No, it's not my fault. It is government's fault. They're the ones that make all the decision. And he gave a great example, is that the red unit sitting on wheels is not lawful, or excuse me, not legal. But if I take it off the wheels and put it on a stand, now it's okay.
Isn't that's crazy, isn't it?
That's asinine,
Yeah,
excuse my
it's
language.
stupid, yeah.
But the problem is, you, sir, allow this to happen. You need to stand up and poke that guy in the chest and say, I'm going to leave it on the wheels. I don't care what you say because you have no jurisdiction over me. Oh, you can't say that. Why? Because we will not get any more grants. Because the state gives the grants. And so if we step on the state, they're going to cut you off. So what is that? That's servitude. That's a law against the 12th Amendment of the Constitution, where there should be no slavery or involuntary servitude. So when you go get a grant, sir, where does that money come from? Not the trees. It comes from my labor. It comes off my back. That's forced servitude. That's a violation of the Constitution. So you, sir, I shouldn't point, but in general, our leaders are human traffickers because they force me to work hours and hours to justify getting their grants because it comes off my labor and your labor because you all work as well. gentlemen.
We're being held hostage with these grants.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we just need to stand up and say, no more of this stuff, I'm gonna use that generator, you go to hell. Not you, but you tell the other guy to go to hell.
Wait, wow,
And thank you very much. Any questions?
no questions.
And when are we gonna have that meeting?
You could
Pardon
reach
me?
out to Mr. Whitemeyer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something real quick. I came in with the attitude, too, that I would vote no on this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to vote yes, but it's just, it's just, this, I understand the importance of
I
this
appreciate that.
generator.
Just a note,
It's just where the money comes from, and I hope we don't have to raise water rates too awful soon again.
fair enough.
I motion to
Thank
approve.
you for all you do for us, Brian, and going above and beyond to find resources for us. And Ms. Gilbert, you are right, doing a ride-along. I have not gone on a ride-along with you, but I have been on the way to my mom's house when there was a major, major storm, because her home was almost flooded. And I will tell you what, our Public Works Department are definitely emergency responders in my eyes. What they do, I absolutely could never do. So, they have our thanks and gratitude.
Yeah, don't think for a minute that I don't understand the importance of that generator, Jeff. I
All
want
right,
you to know that.
so we have a first.
I motion to approve 11.5.
Jeff, good presentation. Thank you very much. I'll second that motion.
First and a second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Emerald?
Yes.
And Mayor Barry?
Yes, this item passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any city managers report, anybody?
Nothing more to add, but Jeff has an update on Wakefield.
So,
Ooh,
United Paving Maintenance, if you look on the screen,
what'd you find?
that's a
Jimmy Hoffa.
75-foot section that they dug out. I took this picture because you look up on the bank, and that's a tree trunk right there. That wasn't one that was in the ground on purpose. It was thrown away as trash.
No cows?
No cows. Did not find any
You
cows.
sure?
We found everything but the cows. And how do you know that was a dairy site dump? So it was pretty much, we found all kinds of debris, and that's most of what we pulled out. There's like 3 or 4 tree trunks in there. And mind you, this is all underneath the road. So
they were
we got it.
decaying and
We got it out. And then one thing I want to say, United Paving and Maintenance did a fantastic job. They came out and they did above and beyond. I did not ask for Petromat, but there it is on the picture on the left. Petromat's how you lock in some unstable ground. If the subgrade's not stable, you put that Petromat down and 2 foot of base rock on it, and it bridges and locks it in.
Oh.
We did that as a safety measure just in case there was something even deeper we couldn't get to, because we didn't want to go 10 foot
Like a
deep.
cow.
Help it'll bridge over. We should never have a problem with that again. And that's the pavement on the bottom part. So there's your update for Wakefield.
Thank
Still,
you.
still
Could you tell
no.
what kind of trees they were?
No. I just know they're smaller than they were when they put them there.
Thank you.
Still no DB Cooper in there?
Okay, any council member have an item?
I do. Wednesday night at the community center is bingo for seniors, but it is sold out. So I'm just telling you, you can't buy tickets at this point.
Cowboy Museum. I don't know where they're having it. Where are they having it? Bianchi Center? No. Yes. Cowboy Museum on the 12th, Bianchi Center.
Wait, what? Cowboy Museum?
Yeah, they're having a dinner, benefit dinner.
Dinner.
Thank you for coming out and staying with us late.
Yes.
I am very happy that we had a full house tonight, and I hope that you come and join us the first and third Monday of each month. Thank you.
I'm just curious, what's the latest you've ever gone? This might be the latest I've ever done
Oh,
since I've been
probably
here.
I thought we were gonna bring our sleeping bag, yeah, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10
10
o'clock,
o'clock?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to take one more minute, and it's been said before. And
Yeah,
it's-
let's go for a record.
It can't be said enough.
No.
This lady right here, Diana Garcia, does more for the town of Oakdale than than probably anybody else I know, and she needs to be recognized for that. If you've got a neighbor who's got a problem lawn or something, she'll go out and chat with him and make sure that, are you sure you can't mow your own lawn? And if not, she finds somebody to mow the lawn. Your customer service attitude is so far above and beyond anything I've ever met, and I'm impressed with you, and I'm honored to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other council member have an item? Just a reminder, the city council candidate forum is tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. 6 to 8 p.m.
Here?
here, and they'll be accepting questions between 5:15 and 5:45. And if you would like the rules, the Oakdale Chamber website, you can get on that tonight and check that out. Also, the Veterans Parade ceremony and event luncheon will be on November 11th. So stay tuned for more information on that. And like Councilmember Gilbert said, thank you for staying the evening with us. See you Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m. Have a great couple weeks. Meeting adjourned.